Okay, I'm going to call it to order and she'll come in, okay?
Okay.
All right. I'd like to call to order, please, a work session on Tuesday, April 15th, at 5 o'clock. The first item on the agenda is 3.1. Well, I guess that's our item tonight, guys. Sorry. We have only one item tonight's workshop agenda, and this is to receive information regarding the FY 13-14 department-based budgets to include current operations and services provided. So who's starting here? Are you, Mr. Louisi?
Brian's going to.
Chief? Who's starting?
Actually, I was trying to get my mic turned on when you're asking the question. Mayor, members of the council, thank you. This is night 2. Once again, it's a major departments that are having an opportunity to present. Tonight we start off with fire, and we will have development services, parks and recreation, and ITS. It's the same format as last night. When we're all done with this, the only thing is I'll do a recap as far as now how this will work into the next couple of weeks. Next couple of weeks being very important as we get into the revenue updates next week. Along with that, we'll be doing what I am known to say, all things human. We'll be talking about compensation. We'll be talking about health benefits next week as well. And then finally, on April 28th, we get into the expenditure side to include the capital improvement plan. So, but I will do a recap tonight as far as what were the fundamentals behind some of the requests that you'll be seeing over the next few weeks as it relates to us balancing the budget. So with that, I turn it over to Kim, and then she will introduce our guests tonight.
Thank you, Brian, and Mayor and Council. And I just wanted to point out, before we get started with the presentations, we give you a handout in front of you, and that was one of the follow-ups from yesterday's discussion, which was a summary of the training budgets that are in this year's budget for all departments. So I just wanted to point that out in case that's helpful as we go through the presentations.
Just for the record, Kim, I talked to Brian's city manager, and it would be nice, and I know it's not apples to apples all the time, but just to put a total employee count next to that so you get a general idea. And I know there are some variances in there, but it would kind of help get a better feel for.
Will do.
Yeah, thanks.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Fire Department FY 13-14 base budget review. Some of the overview for tonight, strategic planning, and then the overview of the department, our budget, and also our organization structure. Division reviews, breaking down each of the divisions to include staff, budget, and then the programs. Supplemental status update, performance measures, priorities being evaluated for FY 14 and 15, and then any questions or further discussion at that point. From a strategic planning standpoint, how the fire department integrates with the council's action plan. From a fiscal and resource management, looking at telestaff, target safety we were able to implement this year, which is an online training program to help create some efficiencies within the training division. We also received a grant from the Indian communities with regards to the electronic patient care reporting, or as you've heard us say before, EPCR. This is for us to document our care for the patient in the field electronically, and again, creating efficiencies for our employees. We've also, as I talked about last week at my one-year update on the Citygate audit, the Volunteer Fire Inspector Program is obviously a fiscal and resource management piece that fits in nicely with your action plan. Economic vitality, using social media and teleconferencing, again, creating those efficiencies as we can. Sense of community, working with the HOAs, getting to those meetings on a more active basis, also working with neighborhood services to ensure that we are at the right meetings for them. And we're not there too often, but we're there enough that they remember who we are. Again, like last week, we reviewed the city management updates and also looking at potential for accreditation, which again, like I said last week, was still 5 to 7 years away. Regional partnerships, we'll talk a little bit about automatic aid tonight and some of the efficiencies that allows for our fire department. The rebuilding of fire prevention, and then also the break-to-break concept that we implemented in August. Organizational capacity, we conducted a captain reset training that happened in August to make sure that we were all working from the same sheet of music and going forward together as one. And also our Supervisors Academy that we've now had scheduled and to ensure that when we do have promotional exams, as we are this month, that our employees that are prepared for those promotions by going through the Supervisor Academies. And then communications, we had our PIO training last May. We are using social media, Twitter, and also our Facebook to communicate with our audience. Teleconferencing, again, that appears with our web cameras that we've been working with ITS to get implemented, and also our labor management process in our Fire Chiefs Forum. Here's a look at the fire department's organizational chart. This is a high-level view. These are the 5 direct reports that do report to the fire chief for the fire department. We have administrative services, we have logistics, operations, which makes up about 80% of the fire department is within the operations division, emergency management, and then also fire prevention. And again, we'll talk about each of these sections as I go through the presentation. Budget and personnel. Fire department budget is $13 million, represents about 15% of the city's budget. It's the second largest operating budget. Within the budget, we're pretty lean. 86% is personnel, or $11.2 million, which covers 100 persons that are assigned to the fire department at this time. The 14% remaining is commodities, contracts, and services, such as our CAT agreement, materials, and any other supplies that the fire department might need. So as we go through the different divisions, the Office of the Fire Chief obviously includes the Fire Chief and then the Administrative Division. So there are 5 FTEs that are assigned to this division. 92% of the $535,000 that are assigned to this division is personnel, and again covers those 5 FTEs. 4% of that is contractual, covering costs for major contracts such as subscriptions, forms, training for administrative services, and then 4% is commodities, covering other costs, generally administered office supplies. What we've done even several years ago is centralize a lot of our office supply costs out of our administration, and that's actually helped us keep a lot of those costs down as opposed to decentralizing that.
I have a question.
Yes, Brian.
Chief, it would be helpful to help me understand
Yes,
how
ma'am.
your department is laid out, is if you would tell us in, not necessarily today, but in your organizational chart,
Yes.
how many people are in administrative services and how many are in logistics? That just makes more sense when you lay it out. to
Yes, ma'am.
us, then we have some idea of, we're talking about how many people.
On the second line there, it says the number of FTEs that are assigned to each
Well-
division.
That's it.
It's
You mean the chart itself?
I mean, the chart itself.
oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
The organizational
I can
chart.
read the FTEs,
Oh,
but
on the org chart,
where
okay.
are they? Where do they belong in, what, you know? That's it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, within the Office of the Fire Chief, obviously, as we talked about, we have the executive staff and the administrative staff. And again, kind of support functions for the entire department, customer service to both internal and external customers that we have, community and labor relations. Our PIO, while he has multiple hats that he wears, he does assist us with getting out any information. We also use Tanya Tanner to help us out as well with some of our PIO functions. Policy development and all this performance metrics coming out of the administrative division. Emergency operations, again, is our largest division within the fire department. Our total budget here is $10.4 million. It's 94% is personnel, pretty lean, covering costs for 88 FTEs. 5% of the remaining budget is contractual, which includes emergency services agreement, EMS and hazmat equipment, and also our training within here. And our commodity accounts for about 1% under the emergency services. In operations, we have 6 fire stations. They are an all-hazards approach to our response. And by that, I mean they are cross-trained, dual role, sometimes tri-roles. They are firefighters, certified firefighters. They are also EMTs and paramedics. And some of our members have hazardous materials training as well. So there's additional training that comes out of our stations. Within the operations division, we also have EMS, or a medical services division, and also our training division. So again, operations represents our largest section of the fire department. From an efficiency standpoint, automatic aid has been seen as a best practice in emergency service delivery. Essentially what automatic aid does is it erases jurisdictional boundaries. So when that call comes in to the 911 operator, we're dispatched by the City of Phoenix Fire Department. When that call comes in, it's the closest, most available resource that meets that call criteria. So regardless of whether it's Avondale or Buckeye Valley responding, it's the closest, most appropriate resource that's responding to that person's call for help. This has been studied by many cities throughout the United States and also many countries throughout the world trying to replicate this technology and also this best practice. And most recently, within the last 2 years, City of Phoenix had a management audit conducted on them, and one of the best practices that came out of the City of Phoenix was this automatic aid agreement.
Paul,
Yes.
before you go on, I'm
Carolyn?
sorry. I apologize. You said there are 6 fire stations. What am I
Yes.
missing?
So we have 181, which is at Yuma and Litchfield, 182,
Okay.
which is in Estrella Mountain Ranch, 183, which is at the Community Park, 184, which is at Yuma, just east of Saraville, 185 is at Pebble Creek, and then 187 is down in Mobile.
Okay, so it's not showing. That's why I was lost.
Yes, yeah.
And so you went from 5 to 7.
We skipped 6, yeah.
I see.
We're trying to confuse people.
In Australia.
I'm glad it was.
Yeah, the next 186 has already been planned for a spot in Estrella Mountain Ranch, southern section of it.
I'm sorry. I just wasn't, thought I was not finding something. Thank you.
Good question. And then lastly, with automatic aid, improved safety for our firefighters, because we're all operating off the same sheet of music.
Joe?
Automatic aid, what are we looking at this year as far as an increase?
In costs?
Yeah.
I think the percent increase, if I can remember off the top of my head, is about 6 to 7% increase, I believe, this year.
Okay.
We're paying less than $400,000 for our agreement with the City of Phoenix, which includes all the dispatch, all the infrastructure, and the oversight in the 911 system, and dispatching system.
Yeah, I
Joanne?
just,
Excuse me, Joe, I'm sorry.
I just want to make sure on the percentage. I know Phoenix is having some issues in balancing a budget. I just wanted to make sure that percentage doesn't, skyrocket as a result of trying to find some money from some of its outside customers, that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Joanne?
Speaking of outside customers, and your next slide, you have 500,000 we roughly received from Litchfield Park.
Yes.
So is that still a viable number?
Yes,
For the
ma'am.
next budget?
Yes, yeah, actually it increases each year
So-
according to the CPI,
Okay.
Consumer Price Index, so that increases as part of the contract.
Thank
Kim was able to look up that number for me, not a percentage, but there's a $15,000 increase this year from last year for the CAT agreement with Phoenix. So on a 387,
Okay. It's about that, okay.
Wally?
So are we going to see a constant increase every year for using the Phoenix dispatch?
yeah, typically there are slight increases that occur each year, yes.
Do
And
we
that-
have
and
a
that's,
set percentage?
I'm sorry?
Do we have a set percentage, or is it what they determine?
No, it's what the Finance Department of Phoenix determines is the fair share for each city. And it's based on your calls for service. So as our calls increase, obviously, our CAT agreement will increase as well.
And
So-
then we will increase Litchfield if it needs to be.
Yes, we pass through that cost to the City of Litchfield Park, so for any call increase that they have,
Okay, thank you.
cost increase. So speaking of Litchfield Park, we do have an IGA that provides emergency services and fire prevention services to the City of Litchfield Park. Predominantly, they get their response from the Community Park, Fire Station 183, that responds into that community. So again, we provide fire prevention, fire and EMS protection to them through the automatic aid system. And that pays us, the city of Goodyear, about $500,000 annually, and that does increase with the consumer price index, as noted in their contract. Emergency management and homeland security and community services, their total budget here is $230,000. 95% of that is personnel for 2 FTEs within that division. 3% is contractual, covering training supplies for CERT, because this is where the CERT programs come out of, and also an IGA with Maricopa County. 2% is commodities, covering the cost of specialties and also for general supplies. Within this division, they are doing training for the EOC. They're also doing our NIMS training, which is the National Incident Management System, where all of our employees in the city of Goodyear have, especially as they come through GEO. Citywide disaster exercises, and also the CERT training that comes through this division. They also provide for emergency planning for the city, the citywide emergency operation plan, and the COOP and the COG, which is the continuity of operations and continuity of government for our city, to ensure that we still run in the event something happens. Here's a look at the community education piece. Out of this community education, they conduct the Fire Pal program. There are 2 part-time educators that are assigned to Tanner, who is our education coordinator. They also provide for drowning awareness. And then just last week, Tanya was able to partner with APS and was featured at the State Fair with Benjamin Franklin, and was able to access up to 6,000 students while she was down there. They also provide the car seat inspections and installation, and also CPR instruction. As you can see off to the right in the graph is the amount of hours that our fire corps or our volunteer programs have been putting into place over the last 4 years. In those numbers, in 2011 was 1,680 hours or $30,000. 2012 was 2,200 hours or about $41,000. 2013 we had 1,900 hours or about $35,000. And then in 2014 we have about 614 hours through the end of February, and that equates to about $11,000 that added value that they provide to the city. So over the 4 years, about $118,000 that our volunteers have provided for us in work.
Can you just tell me
to
what
real
2011
dollars.
was? I didn't get that number down.
Yes, ma'am. 2011 was 30,000.
Question.
Joanne?
Thank you. With education, the last few years, and I don't know if the recession stopped it, I have a feeling it's rather pricey to put it on, but when you had the mock DUI crashes, prom night, grad night thing at the high schools, I felt that they are extremely valuable.
Yes.
And I have not heard lately if they're still going on. And I know that there was a time that it was trying to do one high school a year.
Yes.
Because it is pricey, and I
Yep.
get it. And it's a lot of, involvement, police, fire, everybody coming together to do it. But I tell you, the message that's given to those kids is huge.
Yes.
And
Very,
so
very sobering.
yes.
Yes.
Literally.
Yes.
It is.
So, I would hope that you guys continue to, or start it again, that it's
Yes.
in that
Okay.
program.
I know a lot of times it's difficult to get those hours out of the schools to be able to host those types of programs, but we can continue to try to work at that, and we can get that done.
Let us moms know. We'll all go down there. So, hey. Thank you. I just think it's very valuable.
Thanks for your support. Okay, moving along. Fire prevention. Total budget here, $133,000. 96% of this is personnel, covering a cost of just 1 FTE. Now, bear in mind, this was in July. These numbers are from July. Since then, we have moved a second FTE in there, Ron Lilly, with the work from the city manager's office and getting that FTE moved across. So again, these numbers are representative of what we had in July. It was only 1 FTE at that time. So 3% is contractual, covering the cost of training and development, and 1% is commodities, covering the cost of minor specialty supplies and also hazardous gears for our fire investigators as well. Within this last year, as you know, Council, this is a complete rebuilding of fire prevention here. We're working on building new databases and also our new business processes, which have been in place. Our occupancy inspection program, ensuring that all of our database here is accurate and that we have accurate information being entered in and also pulled out of that out of that database. Also standing up more fire investigators over the last year. Right now we have 7 that are available for call-out in the event that we do need a fire investigator for a fire. And also we've started our volunteer inspector program. And certainly we'll be able to translate those hours into dollar savings over the next few months. Again, it's just starting this month, so we don't really have any true numbers that are reflective of the benefit that they provide to our city. Okay, next is logistics and/or support services. They have a total budget of $1.6 million. 27% of that is personnel, so a little flip for us in the fire department. This covers the cost of 4 FTEs. 40% is contractual, covering the cost of building maintenance, vehicle repairs, communications equipment repair, and also all the utilities for our fire stations. 33% is commodities, covering the cost of fuel, SCBA supplies, and hazardous gear. Within logistics, they provide internal customer support. They are supporting the firefighters that are going out and providing the care to the customers. They coordinate repairs and maintenance of the fleet and facilities, procurement of any items that the firefighters need, supplies for all the line personnel, and provide for safe and suitable environment while they are on duty for our firefighters. These members are certified SCBA technicians. So the self-contained breathing apparatus, the air that we wear on our backs into hazardous environments. They maintain 101 SCBAs and 192 bottles, so those bottles that are put into the actual pack itself for both the police and the fire department. Conduct in-house annual fit testing for City of Goodyear that require the use of the SCBA, maintaining the service over $1 million of communication equipment and hardware, manage personnel, protective equipment, and firefighting gear to ensure compliance with any OSHA standards. They manage 42 fire apparatus, staff vehicles, and support trailers valued at over $5 million. They maintain service furnishings, tools, and equipment valued at over $1 million. And a lot of the tool repairs are done in-house because of the certifications that Ron and Steve have received, which obviously saves the city quite a bit of money from having to send that out and also turn around on time. They can coordinate all the annual fire hose, ground ladder, and fire extinguisher testing, and they manage the ordering of equipment, supplies, receiving, and storing of such materials.
Bill?
Paul, I know, Chief, sorry. You're getting ready to experience, I think, a couple of retirements in this particular area, is that correct?
One that we know of for sure, yes,
And potentially another one in about a year?
potentially.
Is this an opportunity for you to look at kind of a reorganization of the department that, kind of farther down the road?
Yeah, absolutely. We look at all opportunities for efficiencies and effectiveness of each of these divisions to ensure that they are doing what they say, but also are the most efficient that this fire department can have. So we will take time to start evaluate that. We're actually evaluating that now at the executive level to ensure that the setup of these divisions are the way that we want them. So.
Okay, thanks.
Wally?
My question, Chief, is for logistic and support.
Yes.
You have 4 people
Yes,
in
ma'am.
there, and they're the ones that manage all the apparatus and do all the stuff that they do.
It's truly
It's amazing.
It is. Yeah, they do
I'm
quite a bit
sorry,
of
maybe I shouldn't
work.
say that, but.
No, it is. I mean, and really the workers. I use Gary's old saying, the worker bees. There.
Be very careful.
No.
You may find yourself in a question very soon.
It was said with love.
Yeah.
They provide a bulk of that work, Ron and Steve, and they do a phenomenal job there.
And then when we need repair on equipment, our own fleet management, repairs as much as they can, I guess.
Yeah, with the rolling equipment, the trucks,
Right.
they work in concert with them to make sure that they're getting, the right ones in on it for preventive maintenance, but anytime we have a breakdown, to ensure that we're getting it back in a timely fashion as well.
Okay, thank you.
Joanne?
So this question sort of goes here, sort of doesn't, but, we have a strong potential of having a bad wildland fire season.
Yes.
And I know the last couple of years, we've, lent out our guys and our equipment to fight those. And one, are we receiving our revenues, from the bills that we send out? And two, are we charging enough now that we've seen a couple of years of wear and tear on those vehicles? Is it still, a viable revenue source? And if so, is it worth looking at making larger?
Yes, I mean,
Yes, it
we're prepared, to go out this year, this season. We're actually just received a page today for standby. The teams have been training, they're ready to go, they're eager to go. We charge in accordance with the state contract, so we just resubmitted that in to make sure that we have all of our apparatus listed on there appropriately, as well as the personnel that can go out. So we are prepared for that season. We think it's a good training tool for the firefighters to go out on, for that exposure, and also it is also a good revenue source for the city as well. So,
Okay.
did I answer all your questions? Sorry.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's any way to capitalize more on it or not. But I guess you would have to look into that,
Yeah.
obviously. So,
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so fiscal year 2014 supplementals, these are the ones that we received this year from council. Thank you very much for those. 2 part-time community educators, so they are working with Tanya to get trained up and get out into the field. They have already started to have an impact on a lot of the different programs that we've placed out there. The Medi-Ready for storage of EMS equipment, EMS medications. This ensures a more consistent air temperature for our medications in the trucks, and also for the safety of those medications as well. New mobile radio for our new fire engines. This year we received, as part of a vehicle replacement fund, 3 new fire engines this year, but one of those engines we needed to have a new radio for, so that was part of the supplemental process last year. And then we're also funding over the next 3 years SCBA breathing air compressor. So that will have some money that's assigned to them over the next 3 years so that we can make that purchase. Initially, it was supposed to be in the next 2 years that the purchase would occur. However, we're caught in a technology gap right now. They're coming out with some new equipment, and we want to make sure that we're not getting the old stuff, we're getting the most up-to-date. So there will be a little bit of a year of lag there to ensure that we are getting the most up-to-date equipment that's out there.
Joanne?
So speaking of that technology gap, at the last NLC conference, I attended a public safety radio, technology seminar, and unfortunately I have all my questions with me, but they were talking about the radios, cell phone type of items, and, really gave a list of items that you really should be making sure, don't waste your money on this kind of technology. You want it to have open line, different, oh gosh, now it's terrible. I wish I had my notes in front of me. But not only the technology of it being, a radio device, but also cellular and satellite. It's kind of like all these combinations of things. And I don't know where we are with that. And as soon as I find my notes, I will ask you better questions.
We'd be happy to answer those questions. For the fire department, we did switch over to a new types of radios in the last couple of years. So they allow for trunk systems, and they also allow for hazard zone communications as well. So these radios are able to handle multiple channels and multiple types of communications within those radios. So we feel they're the best on the market that's out there. The other advantage the city of Goodyear has is that we have Chris Nadeau helping us with a lot of these decisions as well. So, and also working with the city of Phoenix to ensure that these are the most reliable pieces of communication that we have out there. So We feel, and also working in the RWC, as Chris talked about last night at the council meeting, we feel that that really keeps us on the forefront.
Bill?
Joanne, if I can add on to that, this was a big topic at the subcommittee that Sherry and I are on, the Public Safety Subcommittee, and it's about FirstNet and the
Right. That's-
nationwide communication system that, while technology says it can be done, the reality is it's going to be years and years out.
Right.
The very good news of all of that, I think, is that not only is the city of Phoenix a major player in that discussion, our fingers into that and our partnership through the CAD agreement keeps us at the forefront almost automatically, and I think that becomes a huge value in why we're on CAD and staying there, is we have access and representation for that, plus all the equipment and everything else for one low cost.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's
it
good.
is.
You know, these seminars are great. They give me just enough information to get me in trouble. Ask questions. You guys got to dig in a little deeper on that, so good. Okay.
Okay, from an efficiency standpoint, as we talked about earlier, getting the EPCR, electronic patient care reporting, in process, and that was a grant that was received by the Indian communities. We feel like this is going to provide for a lot of efficiencies for our employees that are working on the street, providing care to the patients, transmitting this information much more protected and secure fashion. So right now we're on the cusp of making a decision on which vendor and then hardware we're going to purchase and be able to move that forward. We hope to be up and live by sometime in the summer with this program. I hope for that efficiency to be created then. Creating a more efficient and effective fire prevention and fire investigation program. Again, we're about a year into the rebuild of fire prevention and our fire investigation program. We're already starting to see some benefits from that. We're hoping to see a lot more from our volunteer inspection program and really drive up those number of inspections for us.
Joe?
Just real quick, on the electronic patient care,
Yes, sir.
is the value in that survivability rate going up? Would that be part of it?
Patient survivability?
Yes.
No, I think it's more on the accurate reporting of it.
Okay, so this is after the fact, not getting
Yeah,
information
this is after the fact, yes.
to the hospital quicker
Right.
as you're...
But I think it will on the back end as well, because it will provide for better quality assurance from our standpoint. So kind of after the call, being able to review that with the provider itself, and to ensure that we're reviewing all of the calls. Right now with paper documents, it gets a little tedious at times. With electronic patient care reporting, it makes it a little bit more seamless for us. We can almost see it almost instantaneously once the call has been posted to begin that quality assurance process. And that will provide us to give better feedback to our employees.
Okay.
Bill?
Paul, doesn't that better quality assurance also
Yeah,
lead into a
it could-
risk reduction
Yes, absolutely, yep.
liability issue?
Liability,
That's sort of what I
yes.
was kind of going.
That's
Yeah.
kind of what I thought you were driving at.
Sherry?
Yep.
I haven't had too many questions because you just were here like the week before, so I guess. But I really would like, as you really get the volunteers hitting the street, that
Yes.
if we could get maybe an update in like 6 months, because I would really like to know, how it's working for you, how it's working for them, the
Yes.
community, and I'd just love that because I think that's a great program.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, Telestaff was a system that we have had in place now for a year, but we're starting to see some significant savings on the staffing software. Before, we had either the battalion chief or a captain helping staff on a daily basis, and it can become very tedious at times. Right now, we're looking at Telestaff saving anywhere from 5 to 10 hours a day. So if you equate that out to dollars, we're looking anywhere from $48,000 to close to $98,000 savings per year that this Telestaff program has been allowing us. So that return on investment for us is very beneficial. Labor management process, obviously open and transparent labor management process has been very helpful for the fire department, especially as we start to move the department forward again. So this has been very helpful for us. Target Solutions has been an efficiency for us from a training standpoint. This is an online training program, so we're able to pump out a lot more training for our employees and give them access to a lot more training that can be accomplished in the stations. This allows them to stay within their first dues or their response areas and be a lot more efficient and effective to their neighborhoods that they respond in. But also, it allows for a much cheaper cost per person in the delivery of the training. It can conduct training without having to travel to receive that training anywhere else. And again, this is on some of ours. Some of these are training. We have to either go down to our training academy or to the Wildland Academy, where we'll have to send our personnel that we sent them in April. And also to paramedic or EMS training, we'll have to send them down to one of our fire stations for a more centralized training for them.
Joe?
Chief, as a follow-up to that.
Yep.
And again, thank you for this detail. We have $32,000 worth of training budget for fire.
Yes.
And out of that, what is operational?
For the operations division, it's $19,500.
Okay. And I notice with police, their employee training development's about $65,000. I guess my question is, and I can appreciate what you just mentioned, as far as using the teleconferencing to keep, some of those costs down. But my question is there, again, I go back to that statement I made when I talked to you last time. I want to make sure I'm risk averse, so I want to make sure that we've got people properly trained, so down the road, we don't have problems with suits, et cetera. Do we have enough money there? When I see the PD and I see yours and I see $16,000 for operations. Just throw that out. You don't have to answer me now, but that's my concern, even though I know you're saving some money through the internet training. So just give that some thought there.
Okay. Thank you.
What, Bill?
Bill?
Kind of on that subject, and I think it was very helpful to get this across the board. You do a quick look at that, and if you just use all the totals, and I know we don't want to compare one to another, but overall, I think we end up having to. Even the Development Services Division has $62,000 in their training budget, and there appears to be a disparity citywide on how we've addressed training. So I think going forward, as the manager and staff get ready to push this, I hope that's something that we all will consider as we look at it, to see how we're spending those training dollars, and are we getting it to the people that are going to cause us the greatest liability. And I'm not saying Development Services doesn't need it, but I'm just saying perhaps you guys need more. And if it's only $19,000 for the operational people at 88, we heard from there's 88.
Yeah, there's 88 assigned to operations.
I can't do the math in my head, but it doesn't sound like a whole lot.
No.
Couple hundred.
For a literal, and I'd make the same argument with PD. Life and death kinds of training shouldn't be done at thousands of dollars per person. I mean, it's got to be more.
Yeah. And the training division has been very remarkable in the training. I mean, they're providing, especially for the operational folks, they're providing over 200 hours per person in training, and they've done a remarkable job.
I just think, just a follow-up with Bill, I just want to make sure you...
Sorry to
Oh, excuse me.
recognize you. Go ahead.
I just want to make sure we have enough, that's all. Because, again, the type of services we provide are risk.
Yep.
And when things go wrong, it gets very expensive. And I just want to make sure that we're upfront and proactive in that instead of reactive to that, so.
Correct.
I'm going to go to Wally first. Wally?
I just have a question, Chief.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I am not in the fire department. Do you have the opportunity to send your firemen off to be trained somewhere? I mean, I know you use the Glendale Fire Academy. Do you not? I guess it's the Glendale Fire Academy if you need to do some training, but...
Yeah, I mean, we're very fortunate that our the training academy that we share with the City of Avondale, we're able to do a lot of live burn training there.
Okay.
From a regional perspective, on duty, we'll send our members over to the Glendale Regional Public Safety Training Center. So we will get them over to that. We talked about the Wildland Academy. That's something that we have to send them away to, and that's overnight. But, within the training budget, we have to prioritize our needs. And that's certainly something that we want to make sure that we're getting our members to, especially before they deploy on a wildland assignment. So we feel like that's very important. We're able to bring in-house the paramedic refreshers every 2 years. Paramedics have to go through a 48-hour refresher, and also EMTs have to go through a 24-hour refresher every 2 years. So that, we have to do that. We brought that in-house because we felt like it's very important to train our employees to what the city of Goodyear wants for their employees, especially in the fire department. Instead of sending them out, we bring the instructor in. So that does save some money for us, for the city, by doing it that way. We still have to pay them overtime when they're off duty. So
Right, but are they trained while they're on duty?
there are some that are trained while they're on duty, but there are others that just happen to be off that day,
They
and
need
so
the training,
it just
okay.
yeah.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you.
Joanne?
Well, I mean, it sounds like, even though, the numbers look small compared to other departments, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not getting what you need. I mean, it sounds like you've had a lot of great partnerships where you're able to bring those costs down, where maybe police doesn't have that same opportunity to make training less. I don't know, but, by saying, oh, throw more money at you for training may not be the answer. It may be that it's just that you're being very efficient in that.
Are more fire on the street versus fire
You mean
manpower?
Police on the
Did I say
street?
that?
You said fire.
I meant police. Thank you for correcting me on that. Is there more police on the street than fire generally? So I'm thinking of hours away and
Yeah,
and
maybe
opportunity.
you just can't
I would
really
think
compare.
I would think that would figure into it.
They're,
I didn't hear that.
they're 90.
Go ahead.
They're 94 sworn. We're 91 sworn. That includes me
Uh-huh.
as the fire chief, but 88 on the street that I work in.
Joe?
No, I just want to make sure everybody's clear. I'm not suggesting that we throw money unnecessarily at anything. I just want to make sure that because of these numbers, that we have enough to get the job done.
Mayor?
Just one second. Sherry?
I guess I want to echo that, and I want to have you to have the flexibility in your budget so that if the training does become available, or there's something, it's not something that we have to say, no, you can't send people to if it's out there. So, obviously, you know best how to train your people. But I want to make sure, and I think that's where Joe's going, is that we want to make sure that you have the resources to make sure that they are trained, because we all understand that everyone's been doing more with less the last couple of years, and we have a lot of people that maybe haven't had the training experiences in the past because we did bring stuff in-house, and if there is a really good program out there, we want to make sure that you have the opportunity to send people to have them the highest trained level.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lynette reminded me about the our hazmat training as well. A lot of that's done through UASI funding, grant funding, so we're able to help secure that grant for training for them as well. So we look for those opportunities that are out there.
Thank you.
And the last piece of our efficiencies I listed on here is the fire chief forum. And again, quarterly basis, I get in front of the camera, in front of the employees, and typically we'll have a small agenda, but also allow them to ask any questions of me. Then we video it. Lenny's been great about videoing that for us, and then we post it for the employees to see. So on a quarterly basis, kind of hearing about big topics that are going on either in the city or in the state. Okay, so our performance measures. The first one we're looking at here is commercial and industrial occupancies inspected. And again, a lot of our data wasn't sufficient. So we had to go back in and rebuild our database. And so we have a target for 2014 of 1,000. Right now, we're trending at about 448, 500 for that. So these are the number of occupancies of inspection. Again, we hope to really drive those numbers up with our volunteer inspectors and also getting that fire prevention division rebuilt. Next one is receiving violations during their annual inspection. Again, trending about the same. as our target, about 55% right now. Again, database wasn't really sufficient, so we had to go back in there and making sure that we are entering it consistently all the time, that our violations are being listed the same way as they would in the previous time. So we had to make sure that that was consistent. Calls for service is another measure that we have. This one is for fire service, and these are all types of fires. It could be debris fire, car fire, building fire, house fire. And from 2011 to 2012, we're seeing about a 14% increase there. And a little bit of a trend down right now. We're targeting about 240 for this year. We'll see how that trends out. And then calls for service for EMS service. This is about 72% of our business, and we've been trending at about 9% over the last 4 years of a call increase for our services. So we're targeting at about 6,200. We're at 5,275 right now, halfway through the month of April. Okay, our priorities for FY 14-15. Obviously, fire prevention is a huge need for us, rebuilding that fire prevention division. Replacement of personal protective equipment, so that is the turnout gear that they would wear into the fires. Ours are starting to age out. There's a 10-year limit on those, so we want to make sure that we're protecting our members. As we just spoke about, funding for the training division, succession planning, leadership training, and supervisor development. We know we have to train the next leaders in the fire department, and we have to start that now. Increase for emergency services agreement, as Kim gave me those numbers, we always see a slight increase. But again, those are for calls for service, typically that drive that cost for the city of Goodyear. And then our thermal imaging cameras is also a priority for our department, so allowing us to see in a less than austere environment for us to be able to find victims or to quickly locate the seat of the fire to limit the amount of damage to the home or to the business itself. So at this point, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions? Wally?
My question is on the thermal imaging cameras.
Yes, ma'am.
How many do you plan on getting? Do you want one for each crew or each truck?
That would be ideal for us to have one for each truck. Chief Tom Cole was just able to secure a grant for one of them through the UASI funding. That one has to be assigned over to our hazmat truck, but he was able to secure that for us just recently.
How many do you have?
So we have 6 stations, so,
Do we have one now?
we have one now.
We have one now.
Well, I'm sorry. We are using older technology right now. We do have them on our trucks, but we're looking to replace that technology.
Well, I had the opportunity to go to a fire safety day, or actually, I'm sorry, a public safety day at Glendale Fire Training Academy, and I was elected to be the lead person that had the camera that went into a smoke-filled room. And when I first went in without it, I didn't know where I was. You're absolutely disorientated. And then I got the camera, and I can see how critical it is for our fire personnel to have that when they go into a building. And I know they're expensive, but that is really saving their life.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can fight a fire and go inside without one,
Yeah.
truthfully.
Yeah, and it allows us to find victims that much
Whole
quicker.
bodies, yeah, I'm
and
sorry,
also,
yeah.
And also the seat of the fire much quicker as
Sure.
well. So.
Wow, okay, thanks.
Joe?
Personally, I had a call one time when my alarm was going off, and we didn't know if it was a fire or not. So I see the value in just having that, just to determine, number one, whether there is something burning somewhere in there, and also the value that Wally had mentioned, looking for individuals or victims inside when you get into the fire. But the second piece I wanted is on the feedback. How do you go about, because we pride ourselves on customer service and determining on how, the feedback we get from the patients, the people we're in contact. How do you go about getting that in a way that we feel that, you're getting good data?
We at one point we were having our firefighters hand out cards, and they were receiving those cards back, putting them into a database, and we were at 95% excellent customer service that we were receiving back. Then we started to notice that it was just kind of falling off, turning off. What we want to do is when we redo our website is put a portal on there for them to provide feedback for us, so we can get that feedback from the customers. And we'll try to direct them either through social media or other medium types to be able to provide that feedback for us. But we're always looking for ways to get feedback from our customers.
I kind of like the idea of getting a link into a portal where they can go in
Yes.
and put the information, and for whatever reason, they could put an anonymous where the case, so
Yep.
you know accurately what's going on out there.
Correct.
I like that idea.
Well, I think I can fully appreciate, this thermal imaging has been around, and when our house got hit by lightning, and I didn't report it, and then I reported it the next day after my daughter warned me, and when you went up in the attic, yes, a beam had caught on fire in the house, but obviously, somehow, some rain came in through the side vent, but it was charcoal up there,
Wow.
so I guess it is really important, not just when it's happening, sometimes a warning to the people that the next day it can burn your house down, so, so, thank you. Bill?
Chief, I just wanted to, looking back, it was a year ago, I think you roughly sat here as the interim chief.
Yeah.
And we had the presentation last week, but just, looking at everything that has been accomplished and what we're going through in the budget and identifying some of these major hurdles, I think has been really important. And I think the questions, at least from me tonight and listening to everybody else, is we're trying to make sure that you've got the tools you need to continue to make these changes and bring the equipment back up to speed and all the rest of that. So I didn't get a chance last week, but I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciated that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Well, can I
Molly?
make one more quick comment?
Wally, this is your time, you can make
Thank
two or
you.
three.
Well, I apologize for not doing this last night when Chief Geyer was presenting his budget as well, but I just wanted to thank both of you for your wonderful presentations and to tell the council, I'm sure you all know this, that this is Public Safety Telecommunication Operator Week, and we want to thank all of our 911 operators for their wonderful dedication and the service they do to our city, and to the Phoenix Fire 911 operators who also take those calls. We just really appreciate them, and we know they are under very stressful conditions, and we appreciate them doing this for us, and we honor them this week.
Thank you, Wally, for bringing that forth. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, great presentation.
Thank you.
Kim, you're up.
I'm just going to move the presentation while Sherry comes up. We have Development Services up next. See the little mouse moving over here.
Good evening, Sherry.
Sherry. Council.
I'm getting a complex. You keep staring at me.
I'm looking at the
No.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's my pleasure to be with you this evening and share a bit about what we've done with the resources you've allocated to us over the past year and some of the accomplishments of the department and our team. As you will see in...
Thank you.
As you will see in our initial slide, very similar to those which each of the departments is using, we're going to address our strategic planning and the overview of the items that we have addressed this year in the strategic planning arena. Our budget, our organizational structure, our divisions, and all of the elements of the divisions within the budgets and the programs, and also the status of our supplementals as awarded this previous year. Some efficiencies that we've gained from process and organizational change. And then the priorities that we've addressed, we think, for the coming year, and those which we hope to hear from you that are important as well. And the performance measures, a few of them that we've identified that we think are relevant, and also a discussion about those which we think we need to address in the future. With that, we'll get started. So in the strategic planning realm of development services, we've worked very hard with engineering over the past year and Deputy City Manager to expand the electronic plan review process, and that has taken the resources of engineering, their dollars, and IT, their hands-on work, and a couple of consultants to expand the Project Docs software throughout all of the development process, and also a bit of financial resources to get us up to speed in terms of monitors and workstations. So we have that fully implemented at this stage, and we're working on refining business processes within the system. On the economic vitality front, we have recently, again, begun working with engineering and our Deputy City Manager, Bob Beckley, on streamlining the development and tenant improvement processes. This is a key consideration for us. We recognize that while we think we're developer-friendly, we probably have some work to do. And to that end, we're evaluating everything from the very first appearance that they see walking into development services, to the very first piece of paper that they receive, to our website, to the actual processes and timelines themselves, and streamlining those and taking out steps that don't make sense or may be redundant, eliminating handoffs within that process, and getting our customer feedback on those improvements. So we'll talk further about those, but a lot of heavy lifting is going on in that, and we hope to have some dramatic results to unveil in June of this year.
Joe?
Just a quick question, just to piggyback on what I mentioned to the fire chief that was up before. Once the process is streamlined and you're tracking from beginning to end, I think it would be very helpful, either to your social media, to the website, to have a way in which customers anonymously can go on and you can ask them specific questions on the process, how they liked it, things they liked about it, things they'd like to improve, et cetera, that you get instant feedback as that process goes through so that you can make whatever changes has to be made, because we want to be business friendly, that we're promoting to make sure they come here. But from my perspective, we want to make sure that's what's happening, and I think you have to have that environment in which it's not tracked back to anybody individually for them to encourage them to do that. So I think that would be very helpful once you get your things in place. There's no sense in putting it in when things are still moving in that direction. But see how, see what their feedback is from the time they pulled it till the time they actually get their C of O, and maybe the CO triggers it to see, those type of feedback from our business community.
Bill?
This is a generic statement, because we talked about it with fire, we just talked about it now here, but every city interaction we have, it would kind of be important to know. So I'm going to pull a card out of Joanne's deck and say, I read an article once, so now I'm loaded with useless information, but I know that there's media capabilities, either through some sort of analytics or something that we can engage, and I think maybe this is what we want to start looking at, is figuring out how to measure that citywide, not just with development services, not just with the fire department, but citywide. Of course, we don't necessarily want to find out from the places that, or the people that interface with PD, but I think there's a segment of PD people we want to find out. Not how was your ticket experience, but how was the other experience? And I think there's a value to us as a city to try to figure out what that looks like. And if my memory serves me, it's not that expensive for us to test our customer service. So sorry to take up your time on that, Sherry, but
Survey monkey.
Joe?
Just to follow what you were saying, many years ago when I first started out, I was a chief tax auditor, and I went to my fellow auditors throughout the valley and other chief tax auditors and told them what I intended to do was to send surveys out to everybody we audited, and they thought I was nuts because they expected, number one, to all get negative responses. And my feeling's always been, even with PD, if you're courteous, personable, you let people know what went wrong, what to fix, most people will give you an honest response, okay? So, I think you can probably use it for just about anything. I used it, and that's how I rated a lot of my auditors based on that feedback, because their goal was to tell them what they did wrong, how they fixed it to make sure it wasn't an issue before. They were personal and cordial, never, never kept them out of the loop. So, and again, I got 95% positive because that's how they were trained, and that's what they were, that's what I expected them to do. So I'm sure we could do it for really anything if people are doing it right, so.
Well, I know that I feel frustration through the years since I've been with the city in 2005, because we have gone up and down with being business-friendly, not being business-friendly. And so it just, each time we approach another avenue and we do well for a while and then we fall short again. So I guess my frustration is with the business community who's saying they had bad service but won't come forth with their information, won't tell us their situation. They're not helping us cure this problem. I don't know if it's something within the system or if it's individuals or whatever it is. But anyway, it looks, when one person starts that around the community, it just moves quickly. And I am very frustrated as a mayor, and have been, because we've worked so hard on it. I know the departments have worked so hard. But somewhere there's a missing key. And I think you're discovering some of them and making those changes. But definitely, this is the time we need to get them done, and so that as the building, as we start becoming, the city we were before, with a number of buildings that are coming, number of homes, number of businesses, number of everything, that we can cure this problem. But, I'm going to say it publicly tonight. I'm beseeching the public. Do not keep it a secret. Do not use it at your coffee clutches. Do not use it at your chamber. Do not use it here. For heaven's sakes, call one of these people on the council, and there'll be no repercussions from this. So I'm hoping that people are out there tonight, or if the news media are listening to this, this is what we want. We cannot be the best of the best without their help. We use volunteers all the time, and this is in the same sense. So I just wanted to have this opportunity, and thank you for listening to me to pontificate on this, because I know it's frustrating.
Mayor, thank you, and comments of all the council members. There are days when we all share your frustration and share the same passion for changing the process and making it user-friendly and truly transparent and consistent, which is really crucial for the business community, and that is our goal with this process change. In addition, we are working with Human Resources to identify survey tools and customer service training that should come into the process in about that June-July timeframe as we implement the new process. So hopefully have those components and points extremely well taken. Implementing a master plan to develop the airport corridor. So as you all are aware, Phoenix Goodyear Airport did a master plan that was completed about 24 months ago, and our job was to get in and get our hands dirty and help them with that process. I think the economic development team has had pretty good success over the past year working with Phoenix Sky Harbor on, and many of our tenants actually, at the airport to get ahead of their game and anticipate their needs for growth. And to that end, we have planning for about 250,000 square feet of additional hangar space. And as you're all aware, Hangar 18 was absorbed last year, and we have a 3 million square foot expansion of Hangar 18 going on this summer, actually. So in addition to all of Hangar 18 being built out last year, we have $3 million going on this year. And then the last component is a master plan to implement actual runway improvements, hangar improvements, and additional growth beyond just airport functions, but into office and other uses on airport, both on the north side and the south side, while refining the opportunity for future growth in the corporate jet terminals. So very exciting, and we're actively engaged from development services all the way to our legislative affairs team and beyond. So it's a very exciting time.
Joanne?
And that sounds wonderful. A couple of years ago, and Sherry, I thought you were on, or maybe Gary was.
Airport.
Right.
Yeah.
What was that master plan?
So that was actually the master plan in terms of what investment over, very much like our capital improvement plan, what investment over time for basic operations of the airport. It wasn't really a land use discussion from what the market would bear and what the opportunities were with the on-airport leases, et cetera.
Brenda Holland was on that, and there were a number.
Yeah, that's quite a few years ago.
Yeah, it was. Bill?
Sure, as long as you have brought up the airport master plan, et cetera. One of the things that we're going to talk about, I assume, Kim, in the next month or two, is the capital improvement plan. And we had the west entrance is in it, I think in 17, maybe in 16. Anyway, it's not when it is. But if, for me, having that in there is really dependent upon this airport activity. It doesn't make any sense for us to move forward on a west entrance if we're backlogged, et cetera. So I think as we get ready to have the discussion about whether we're going to, how we want to move forward with the CIP and the rest of that, and I remember because I just touched it the other day, it's that gigantic spreadsheet. Can we get a little bit more specificity to that before we make a decision on stamping?
Sure, of course.
Yeah, thank you, and Councilmember Stipp, it is fiscal year 17, and so that does give us the flexibility if, we are basing this on plans today, that if things change, we do have the flexibility to move that in future plans, because that capital improvement plan will be reviewed every year, so it's not next fiscal year, so we won't be spending dollars, so.
Where my brain is headed with that is there are other projects that perhaps we can take that monies for that, flip-flop, accelerate those, slow that one down. And before we get off track to, okay, here's the project and we're not going to talk about it anymore, I wanted to throw that up on the radar. No pun.
On a marketing basis, just tell me how that goes, though, because I know that
Yeah, chicken or the egg.
it's very important to have the funds and the resources when the opportunity comes. It's always nice to take that money, move it on, and do something else, and the opportunity comes, and now we're stuck, we don't have the money, and we have to figure out how to do it. So I would like that within, the explanation of it, because with economic development, you're on the move all the time. And we can't be so predictable as some of the other departments can be. And so I appreciate us being a very versatile in how we're handling this. And I know it goes against some of people's grain of how departments are run and so forth, but this is the department that goes out and creates the jobs, brings the companies in. This is the really hard work to do that. It's not as easy as it sounds. Sherry?
Yeah, while we're in the airport, then I have a question, because obviously it's Phoenix's airport, and my understanding is on enterprise funds over there, which shouldn't be affected as greatly with their budget problems. But I do know that the last recession slowed down some of those plans. So how do we work with that? What does your department do to kind of keep that even keel for us?
Councilmember, excellent question. Interestingly, the threat of the closure of our airport tower resulted in our partnership getting stronger. So it's been a really exciting couple of years where Phoenix Sky Harbor and the city of Goodyear have worked together, for example, to attend the large maintenance and repair organization conferences. And in fact, we just hosted one here at Phoenix Sky Harbor Goodyear Airport just a couple of weeks ago. And while they were in town for the big corporate meeting, we had them out to the airport and on site to look, and jointly did that event together, advertising, et cetera. So our goal has been to plan strategically for how together we can make that money stretch farther, and how every effort that we do in terms of working with industry is first put in front of their eyes in terms of their capital budgeting and their planning for the airport, and has resulted in the case that I'm talking of, the potential for extensive new design, build, leaseback opportunities. And typically in the case of the airport, they get the lease benefit from the land, and a third-party developer would get the benefit of the buildings. But our tenants in the Goodyear Airport get the benefit of new facilities, state-of-the-art, and hopefully an aggressive lease rate.
Real quick,
Joanne?
on the tower question, just where are we again on that? Is it through the end of June, or is it, what was the date? I forget.
We'll have to get a little further advice.
Yes, we'll get that.
I know it was pushed back again, which is good, but I just wondered when we were up against it again.
I believe the latest was October, but we'll
October?
get a certainty on that.
Right. And Romina and Rob, if you're back there, if you could, if you have any updates for the extension of the tower.
I think they have a date. Do you know the date back there? Romina?
I think it went,
I think it was through the end of the fiscal year.
federal fiscal year. Yeah, September 30, September 30.
So the tower funding is funded through October of this year, but we don't anticipate having any issues moving forward. We're still working with Phoenix. Phoenix is pretty confident that everything's going to be fine. The delegation's pretty lined up. And we're already, I mean, they're already sending letters. We're right behind them. Every letter that they've asked us to send, we've sent. All phone calls have been made. The mayor's made conversation anytime we've been in DC on the funding of the tower.
Well, it's worked so far.
Yeah, we've been pretty successful so far. So
I
I
think
don't
it's-
anticipate any issues.
It really is, and congratulations to staff, all of you, during Romina, what you've done during this time. And actually, I have to tell you, probably our relationship with Phoenix is better than it's ever been. And I think through this, we found out the partnership and how successful that airport can be with our limits of not owning the airport. So good on you, and I have positive feelings on this, too. And they've proven this up to this point, so. Thanks, Romina.
Sure.
Moving on to our next item, completing the environmental impact study for the Sonoran Valley Parkway. As we all know, this has been a long haul. The status today is that we are in the stage where we have approved the programmatic agreement between the BLM and the Arizona State Historic Preservation Office and the City of Goodyear, which relates to, hopefully, the final stage before we receive our right-of-way permit. This stage allows us to agree on what happens when historical and religious artifacts are discovered or should be discovered during the construction of the right-of-way. And we hope to see that right-of-way permit later this summer. Update to the Economic Development Strategic Plan, as you've all been a part of. We had a wonderful, successful Focus on Success effort, third piece of the APS strategic planning process this past year. 20-plus members of our business community, our mayor, our city manager engaged in a robust discussion about the future of our growth in economic development in Goodyear. And we hope to be rolling out all the new pieces of the plan and our initiatives with the community over the next year. And that's a very exciting piece of where we're headed from an economic development perspective. As you'll note from the organizational charts later, we're down to Harry Paxton and myself working on the economic development efforts. We've had some changes over in staff, one retirement and one promotion outside of the city. So we're aggressively recruiting in a couple of days here for another team to support our efforts. So we're very excited about that. And then, of course, as part of the strategic planning process, our research opportunities for an incubator was requested. And again, we all shared in the opening of the Innovation Hub at the library here just a few months ago, and our partnership with Arizona State University and SkySong. Very exciting day. And the second piece, of course, as we've talked about, is the accelerator and the potential of our Economic Development Administration grant to study the potential of creating a bricks and mortar accelerator here in Goodyear. And we'll have some more coming back to you over the next few weeks about that decision.
Joe?
Just a general comment. I understand promoting jobs and economic development is a key focus, but also I believe to look for opportunities for family-friendly businesses as well as entertainment, because that's, to me personally, I think that's one of the areas we're really lacking in the city. Places for families to go, whether it's bowling, whether it's ice skating rinks, whether it's quality movie theaters, variety of, we don't have anything. So our families are going other cities to do that. So I'd still like that to be part of our mission in economic development, to get that here so that our families come in here have places to go as a family, not just the parks and the trails, but places to go and enjoy. Because I know when I had my granddaughter's birthday, we had to go to Surprise to celebrate it because there was nothing similar to that here in the city. So just want to make sure we don't lose that focus as well.
I got you, Joe.
I know.
Nickelodeon land.
Hey, it works for me.
Yeah.
I didn't tell him to say that about the bowling alley. I want you to know that, city manager. He did that on his own. Yes.
Mayor,
Brian?
as you know, it was also incorporated into the Focus on Success, incorporated into that strategic plan at the request of council, so it's absolutely part of the game plan for economic development.
And the focus on success recognized it.
It did indeed.
So,
And one of the challenges, and not to, belay any plans, that we heard from, for example, the Urban Land Institute Technical Assistance Panel and a few of the other consultants that we've had in market recently, is not only in entertainment, but in other sectors, most particularly office, industrial we see is fairly robust, but the cost of construction versus the actual rents that they can gather in the market by sector is a challenge right now. So in essence, because our vacancies are sub 10% in the retail sector and throughout most of the community, we're having challenges finding space within the community to put in entertainment centers, and then the cost to construct them doesn't warrant the rents that need to be charged for a lot of those different sectors right now. So we're actively recruiting.
It's frustrating. Yeah.
It's a challenge right now. So. And then proactively engage Matrix executives to encourage Estrella Falls Mall's opening by 2016. Certainly an ongoing effort on our behalf and that of the rest of the leadership here in the community. I will tell you, we're having daily discussions, and we obviously did the effort of going to the retail coach study and digging in deeper. So we retained the efforts of the retail coach to tell us, based on the potential mix of tenants within the mall and the anchors that we were anticipating, what they perceived the market to be here in Goodyear relative to other markets in the country of similar size and similar opportunity. Those numbers were very favorable, and so we hope to hear more from the Matrix team later this fall.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Sherry?
And this is actually more on the study and how we do these. How often, not just for the mall, but for just in general, for economic development, is it good to update these studies?
Oh, Councilmember, thank you so much. That is correct. In fact, after we did the initial contract, we put the retail coach on retainer for this balance of this year to use their services, for example, when we go to the International Council of Shopping Centers event in May in Las Vegas, which is the largest collection of development and retail opportunities in the world. So they're helping us day in and day out. In fact, they're proactively sending out packages to those opportunity retailers that were on our list, tailored demographic packages to those retailers for us with customized letters from our work group. So lots of ongoing activities, and in fact, most recently the tool that they gave us was an interactive mapping tool that we can put on our new website when we're ready to go here in the next couple of weeks. And economic development is one of the leading pieces of the new website. So we're very excited about what that looks like. So we're getting some very good deliverables.
Yeah, one's called oregano's. Thank you.
Thanks, the team. And then, of course, partnering. Where am I here? I switched. Oh, on to the next page. My apologies. So, did you change from? Gotcha.
Economic vitality.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. On the economic vitality front in our strategic planning, collaborating with educational institutions to develop local workforce skills and targeted industries. Some of the initiatives that we worked on this year were the SciTech Festival event, where we had not only our talented team here at the city, but also those professionals in the Estrella Mountain Community College team come out and meet with the students in the high schools and talk about what science fields look like and feel like, not only from a profession, but also what's required from an education perspective. I think that was a very effective engagement tool. We're also working with Estrella Mountain Community College, Arizona State University, and several of our other educational partners to get out into the community with our businesses and understand what their needs are. And one of the biggest success stories that we've heard over this past year was the input we received from West Valley Hospital and from Cancer Treatment Centers of America, that they're actively working with not only Franklin Pierce University here in Goodyear, but also Arizona State University on many research initiatives and training opportunities and clinical opportunities, which is really the key that we've learned on the medical side.
So from your perspective, we're seeing growth in the medical side of it and the research side. So is that enlarging? I mean, do you see that as one of the leaders of, well, let's call it an industry?
Mayor, excellent point. In fact, as most of us know, during the recession, the healthcare was one of those anti-cyclical success stories, and so we continue to be very strong in healthcare, and the R&D component is really the newest piece to emerge for Goodyear, and certainly Metro Phoenix really as a whole. Being fed, I think, largely by a new generation of workforce and student that is interested in biotechnology and the lab environment and career opportunities in that field. And so it's just exciting to see from, the K through 12 all the way through to the workforce that we're getting that translation in the science, technology, and math sectors. But healthcare being the strongest by far, we are now at a job count of about 750 employees at cancer treatment centers and about 650 employees at West Valley Hospital, and growing substantially. So we anticipate much greater growth over the next years.
Cheryl Lynn?
Who is the largest employer right now in Goodyear?
Now, that is a good question.
We are.
I'll have to check our, well, that's correct. In government, we are.
Largest
Yes.
employer.
With
I
those,
had that asked.
we are, they're just
West
about
Valley
neck and neck. West Valley Hospital and cancer
700
treatment
and
centers, depending
something.
upon the day.
CTCA has 750.
No, West Valley Hospital has gone beyond them.
Depending
Now,
upon the
would there be
day.
a
so.
trauma hospital too? That should really be a huge increase.
But they're neck and neck. We're loving it.
You bet.
It would be my pleasure to provide updated
But
numbers.
it's one of the hospitals we're thinking?
Oh,
One of the hospitals.
It's one of the
It is,
hospitals we're
yes.
thinking?
absolutely.
Well, there's a real interest.
Yeah, West Valley was last year, and again, Cancer Treatment Centers is catching up quickly if they have not surpassed them this year.
It's always, I remember.
So, all right. Collaborating with our education, that's a repeat. Obtain feedback from new businesses regarding their experience with the city and use as a continuous improvement tool. We heard this from council today as well. And we do have a survey on our website that folks can use from the development services perspective, and we gather feedback that way. We also are actively engaged with the development community in our quarterly business review meetings, where we actively talk about those processes which we're changing, those projects which are exciting, and those which we've had challenges about, and get some best of industry feedback on those things which we can do better. So those quarterly forums have really made a difference in the type of communication and the feedback that we're receiving in a very constructive way as we gain their trust and make changes. Reduce fire construction inspection turnarounds. As we talked last year, we had a bit of a challenge, and since we have integrated with the fire department in development services, we've seen a reduction in turnaround times from originally about 2 months to about a 2-week review time and inspection time, and consistently holding those numbers. Continue the business retention and expansion communication program. Well, we did pretty well until we lost our staff member who was in charge of our small business activities. But we all know that we think we have more we can be doing on the BR&E communication and outreach. And to that end, I'll talk a bit further later about the objectives that we want that BR&E program to achieve. This year, we were able to execute the Small Business Summit, integrate the Innovation
I'm going
Hub.
to stop you there a minute because Joe has a question.
Just real quick, have you replaced that position yet?
It's out for recruitment in about 2 days. We're finalizing the job description, and there'll be one recruitment for 2 positions.
Okay.
Yes. Create a redevelopment plan to include historic Goodyear as well as infill strategies. We are doing this, as we talked about last evening, on the CDBG plan. We're redoing our redevelopment plan for the historic Goodyear area and Yuma all along Litchfield. And part of the precursor to this element was our ULI, Urban Land Institute Technical Assistance Panel, and to understand better how people perceive the Litchfield corridor, whether they perceive it as a technology corridor, a medical corridor, a retail corridor, what was their perception and idea of what it is today and what it could be in the future. We got some really interesting feedback during that process that we're going to integrate then into this 5-year CDBG strategy so that we'll have tools once we have our vision as to where we want to go with it. So we're looking forward to that process here over the next 3 or 4 months. We should have a completed redevelopment plan. partner with the Southwest Valley Chamber of Commerce and the Arizona Office of Tourism on tourism initiatives. I believe the last two bullets fall in well with that. We partnered with the ballpark and the Arizona Office of Tourism to produce a visitor's guide and a restaurant and hotel guide that is an electronic version and a paper version this year during the spring training timeframe. So it was a nice piece. I think we can do better next year. So we're looking at how we can put more funds and resources to not only producing the piece, but getting the word out more strongly.
Joanne?
Will you, this reminds me, I need to get with you because for the chamber, we are putting together an asset inventory of not only, you know, what our assets are physically, but also events and a calendaring system, and so I need to get with you on that.
Wonderful.
Okay?
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember. Read out. The sense of community element in our strategic plan, actively pursue higher education institutions to locate in Goodyear. While we spent a good portion of the first part of this year engaging with a potential higher education partner, in the end, the higher education partner was not able to fund the campus that they wanted to construct. And so that was a frustrating step in our activities, but since that time, we have re-engaged with several of our partners, including Franklin Pierce University here in the community. We've met with them 3 times over the last 6 months and talked about future expansion opportunities, obviously including the Veneta campus, but what about bricks and mortar in other locations and other programs? And to that end, we engaged with them, for example, with our partners at West Valley Hospital and Cancer Treatment Centers of America, and they do have active programs going on with their student body today between those 2 campuses, but what could future growth look like? And we're excited about the potential of that, as well as several other bricks and mortar type higher education institutions that are here in the market. Our next step for this is to issue an RFP for a higher education consultant to take us out and make some introductions and help us with negotiating a deal which is a good fit for Goodyear.
So we're taking another step upward, similar to what we did before when we were trying to get the community university. And so it's time. You know, and the focus on success, you know, kind of, that's one of their results of the time we spent together, that's very, very important. So we've been sort of doing it, but, you know, not proactively like that, so.
Yeah, you've given it your best shot, there's
Yeah.
no doubt. I mean,
We
but
all know
yeah,
that.
it's time to put that strategy. And, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and the problem is, we keep running up against educational institutes that don't have the money. Basically, just don't have the money, even though we're giving them the land.
Yeah.
They don't have the money to start it. So we're hoping with the increase that's happening in funds out in the market, maybe it'll happen. Who knows? Joe?
Hate to beat a dead horse, but without the amenities, you're not going to get the educational institutions.
Yeah, we're
That's why
trying.
Surprise is having some success, because they got tennis courts and aquatic centers and things where the students can use. We don't have any of that, so it's going to be difficult, in my view, to attract a school because of that.
True. Well, we do have some future ideas on
I
that,
know.
and when the time is right, when the city manager wants, I won't say it here right now. So, yeah, I won't, okay. But that's the goal, to see if we can get some activity on some land that we own that would furnish us with that element so that we could move on with some other things, so.
We have a baseball field.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
Next?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, to that end, if I might, a few of the really effective pieces that we did take from our engagement over the past year was more critical information about what makes these projects tick from a financing perspective and what tools are out there, both public and private, for these universities, and what the amenities are that they're going to require. And also a great deal about the gearing up and phasing of curriculum and student body attrition and all the different elements that go into making a higher education institution successful in your community, but also what makes them successful within the walls, and so we can choose more wisely who our partners are moving forward. Evaluate an art and private development program. I'm happy to say that we've worked actively with Parks and Rec over the last 6 months. Gailina Oslansky and the team at Parks and Recreation should be back to you here in May with a policy for consideration. Throughout the past year, we have worked actively with our development community to kind of float the idea and see if they might voluntarily participate in some art in their projects. I will say that overwhelmingly the words were positive, but the actions were a little less so. And so I think without the the ability to ask more directly and to have a policy which supports that activity, we may have a challenge moving forward for art and private development. Certainly our public art and our artist community is extremely active. And the quality of life component, maintain priority focus on proactive code enforcement to sustain the quality and look of the community. So over the course of the last year, we did add our staff member into the field that was previously supervising the work unit, and dramatically were able to increase the number of code enforcement activities throughout the community, and then also practice better follow-up techniques, which was really crucial to ensuring that we were making sure that we had enforcement and compliance. We also were able to reach out to several of our peers in the code enforcement sector throughout the Valley and learn more about best practices, things related to their notices, their enforcement actions from a legal and also compliance perspective, and then also different tools about the different types of equipment that allowed them to be more efficient in the field with their time. So
did it show that we're not doing enough in that direction, that we're
I think
sort of lax in some of the things that...
I think what we found was we actually have a very high compliance rate. It's nearly 98%. However, the amount of notices versus the ability to cover the geographic area of the city is, relatively modest. And so many of these code enforcement teams, for example, have gone to a volunteer scenario or a part-time scenario where they bring in a team of people, 20, 30 folks, and have a much greater area of coverage where they're able to ensure enforcement. And so it truly is a case of, with our three mighty staff, I think we're doing a fantastic job of getting the coverage done, but certainly if we wanted to evaluate other opportunities, we'd be happy to provide some of the experience that we've learned.
Yes, go ahead, Joanne.
How to put this necessarily, but I've heard rumblings. Is there confusion by the code department of what's relaxed right now that they should be going after or should be looking the other way for the time being? Is there confusion going on, or has that been taken care of?
Vice Mayor, thank you for your comment. In fact,
That's him.
my apologies, Councilmember Osborne. We actually brought the code team in, it's been almost 4 months ago now, and did a session with them and the planning team about what the relaxation in the sign standards were, and that's really where the differences occurred. And once we were able to do that, I think everyone was very comfortable. We did have one incident back about that time where there was some interpretation of where an A-frame sign could be located within a property, and certainly there are unique...
Oh, yeah, I know.
I saw that A-frame, yeah.
Certainly there are unique
I try not to look
layouts
as I go down the street.
that could bring that forth as a challenge.
okay.
And one of the reasons that we were excited to get to the design guideline rewrite is the addition of charts and graphs and, pictorials that allow us to define more clearly what the intent is.
Okay, well, the rumblings, I wasn't sure if they were, I just heard it recently, but it could have been because of past stuff, and so I just was throwing it out there, making sure there wasn't confusion stuff.
Usually that team's pretty good about jumping
Thank
in.
you. Thank you.
This is one of those delicate subjects, I guess, but I think me personally, if I hear any complaint about the city, it tends to have code enforcement implications. I know Councilmember Pizzillo has always been a take care of the weeds guy down the streets, and I fortunately or unfortunately follow and drive the exact same streets he does, so he gets to be the voice of that. But I think that the priority focus in this really needs to we need to do more than just write it down. I think we've got to get on this, and one of the things that I think we're going to hear, particularly from the Canyon Trails community, is going to be this issue about, and there's a term for it, and I cannot think of it right at the very second, when we do it for one, but we don't do it for another. There's a
Consistency.
Thank you. Yeah, we've got this consistency issue. So I'm hoping that you, and I know Hector's out there, that you guys are hearing this and really are going to be a little bit more proactive on the code enforcement piece. And with that, I think we need to look at ourselves, the property that we own, and the things that we're responsible for. You know, just driving down the street and seeing 2 or 3 foot tall weeds and medians that we own that's not the way to set the standard.
No, you're right.
And so I don't know if it's we need to think about putting additional staffing there, if we need to go to the fire department's using volunteer people to do fire inspections, for crying out loud. So if we've got our theoretical life safety issues, we should certainly be able to get some volunteers to do some folks who want to spend some time outside.
Well, some of the areas takes people that have, from the city that have insurance and things, because some of the areas are very, close to traffic, so we have to really consider that.
Sure, but
and
even
think-
just
but
driving in
I
the car,
told-
you see them.
I think that was another thing that was brought up. Do you just want to elaborate, was on the focus on success, wasn't that one of them?
It was, and, again,
ULI.
yeah, I think the appearance, we all know, is absolutely critical. And, the challenge, we've talked about actually using some of those volunteers, and I think that's a fantastic idea. And we'll talk with legal further about whether, from a liability perspective, we think we can get there. I think we probably can to some level. At a minimum, though, certainly there are opportunities to have greater outreach with our electronic media right now to access property owners and, others that might not be aware of what our standards are. And so we will redouble our efforts. I hear your concerns.
Well, and I think it's more in undeveloped areas than it is necessarily with active property ownership. And like I said, some of it's ours, and some of it is not. But I think if there's a common thread, it seems to run into the code enforcement piece. And it's not that we're being overly, that we're over-regulating. It's not being done.
Point well taken. And, part of the frustration that we can all appreciate from our residents is, our HOA may be driving around every morning noting violations, and
Yeah,
so you
that's very
receive
true.
that letter instantly, in 24 hours if you left your basketball hoop or your garbage can or whatever it might be. Where if we think of, 190 square miles, we know that we don't cover that certainly in any course of a day, but it may take a while.
We don't have in that area, so can only ask Joe's perspective. Joe?
Just a comment, I think we use a prison contract for some of that stuff too, don't we? So
We do, in fact.
So if we're short on meeting some of those areas, maybe take a look at expanding that contract possibly.
You mean
Just an
for
idea.
landscaping?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian?
Yes, and I would add that we do have Parks and Rec that will be presenting, and they'll talk about some of their objectives for next year, and it does include how we can address some of our rights-of-way and medians.
Molly?
My question, Sherry, is are you able to determine what areas of the city have not been touched by code compliance?
Yes, we are. They
And-
keep very close logs of which their daily routes are
Okay,
completed and
'cause I
those
know,
which are left.
For North Subdivision, sometimes we have had 2 or 3 calls, which they've been very responsive to, cars in the yard and trash out front, that sort of thing. However, if they keep coming to the same neighborhoods and writing the tickets and talking to the residents, they can't get to the others. And so I'm assuming that Councilmember Stipp was alluding to the fact that perhaps in Canyon Trails, someone has been ticketed or talked to and someone hasn't. Is that what you're trying to say? That they're not being consistent in writing someone up or?
And I think it's not just that, it's not one neighbor versus another, hey, why didn't they get it and I did? But it's also about some of the common areas, making notification to the HOA of their responsibility while allowing, and I'll use the city as the example. We're going to hold the HOA to one standard, but we're not going to hold ourselves to that same standard by allowing the same quantity of weeds to grow and that kind of thing. And I realize that we've got, and I'm sure we're going to hear from the Parks and Rec folk about the, hundreds of miles of median that we've got to maintain with the very small staff that we have. But I think that becomes the challenge, and somewhere along the line, code enforcement and we have to figure out what that looks like.
Well, when we had the big recession and we had foreclosed homes, and we had homes that folks were unfortunately having to walk away from, and no one was taking care of them. And as a city, we really couldn't do much, although we tried to find out who the owner was. If the bank owned it, that was a different story. So I'm wondering if some of this undeveloped land that perhaps is in our city, that we really don't own it, someone else owns it. And if it's the developer, then we need to let the developer know, that that's not acceptable. But if it's the city, I would hope that we would know it.
And that, Councilmember, that is the first action that the code enforcement official will take, is to learn the ownership of the property and understand who we need to notify. To your earlier point, I think one of the proactive elements that we're working on right now with our legal team is a new change in our barking dog ordinance that would shorten the amount of time taken to resolve the issues.
Good.
And so, and that was a bit of the best practices that we were able to garner.
That's a good cure, yeah.
I want to tell you, if I may share this, I went to Verrado with my son to buy something, and this darling couple was selling us a couch, and I said, "Your home is beautiful, why are you moving?" And they said, "Well, we're moving into Pebble Creek because we have a barking dog, and we cannot get the dog to hush." And I thought, I never thought of that, that they don't have really an ordinance. And the next door neighbors on the other side were having pool parties, and they were very loud. And this is an older couple who wanted peace and quiet, but it's very important to have an effective barking dog.
Barking bar. What was that? Okay.
Ordinance so that we could take care of that.
Yes.
Because, sometimes folks, when they're working, they put their dogs outside, and they're gone all day, and they don't know that their dogs are just serenading the neighborhood. So,
Yeah, it's
Thank
a
you.
crucial concern.
yeah, thanks for doing that.
Yeah, I'm going to say crucial on a pretty significant level. Having a
Yeah.
home office
Oh, you hear the dogs too, then.
is not good, so whatever we can do, I appreciate
It
that.
used to be when we get we had those reports, it was the number one complaint by citizens. We just
Yeah.
don't get that report anymore that we see. I don't, remember, we used to get a report of complaints from all departments,
Yeah, we
from the...
used to, didn't we?
Yeah, we
From the
did,
Gov-
we did, and barking dogs
GovQA.
were this. So let's get on with the program. We've had enough on barking dogs. Go ahead, Sherry.
I don't want to be shot in the back by my peers here if I stay too long. So, certainly from an organizational chart perspective, I think it's important to note that over the course of the year, we have had a bit of turnover in the team and some pretty good success in recruiting new members to the team with some good experience as well. So we're excited about the up-and-coming year. We were able to bring on, for example, a management assistant to the department, which previously had not had one, Jesse Peterson, who's helping us with our strategic initiatives and special projects right now. It's very exciting. Hector Tapia, our deputy director, who's overseeing all the planning functions at this time, and you'll be hearing more from him as we move forward on several of our initiatives, as you've seen on the design guidelines. We've also brought on Randall Westacott, a position that is an inspection supervisor, and we were able to wrest him away from a local city that had said very high things of his experience. And the inspections team, while it hadn't been without its inspection supervisor for a while, is very excited about implementing SOPs for their work group. And additionally, as we've talked about, we're adding 2 positions, rather need to fill 2 positions in the economic development team, and we added a marketing position in the economic development and development services area as well. So very exciting year from that perspective. So on to the budget. The Development Services Department has about a $3.7 million budget. 89% of that typically is our personnel costs for 33 FTEs. The 11% that remains are contractual memberships, supplies, et cetera. As we move on to the administration, we've talked about today our new Deputy Director, Hector Tapia. Bobby Fulbright on our team moved into a different role this past year as the Development Services Administrator, and really had retained that role in the past, but we're more aggressively defining those services which we need to provide to the development community at each phase of the development process, and how she can integrate into that process and be a bit of an ombudsperson and also proactively be providing information. And a good example of that would be development fees. Quite often we have development teams that come in that are aware we have development fees and those who are not. We would prefer that in the very first day of our discussion they're aware of the development fees, and in fact we can proactively estimate those fees for them. We don't want any surprises down the road, and we want to be fair about exactly what the cost and schedule and issues might be in the development process, and Bobby's helping significantly in that communication. We talked about the management assistant. We brought on a new administrative assistant through a retirement here over the past year, Diana Vasquez, and we're excited to have her aboard as well. The administrative group today manages the economic development efforts, planning and zoning, building safety, code compliance, all of our support functions of budget and procurement and records, et cetera. This year in particular, we were very active, as you know, on the general plan, administration of the zoning ordinance, the planning and development policies, our economic development strategies, policies, and business development activities. And I would say it's been a pretty robust year from the perspective that we achieved some very strategic plans in the community and garnered a lot of public engagement throughout that process, and I'll talk about those a little bit further. From an administrative background, again, we are about $711,000 of the $3.7 million budget. 82% of those 6 FTEs is in personnel costs, and 16% is in contractual costs, and in this case, the general plan update had a consultant involved in the process. Within our planning and zoning group, we have a planning manager, Joe Schmitz, and 3 planner 3s within our work group. They manage and oversee the preparing and implementation of the zoning ordinance, subdivision regulations, our design guidelines and our design guidelines rewrite, and of course the new general plan implementation. They work very directly in the process amendment of the general plan, the rezoning applications, variances, subdivision plats, use permits, site plans, and of course our development agreement development with our legal team and our deputy city manager, Bob Beckley. I would say that in the planning and zoning group, the vast majority of their activities fell into quartile 1. We did have one which fell into quartile 2, which was a regional planning element, which I think because it wasn't all mandated was deemed a quartile 2 activity. With the planning and zoning team, our total budget is $680,000 approximately, with 6 FTEs, of which 95.4% is personnel costs and 4.6% is contractual and commodities, memberships and trainings, things of that nature.
Question.
Yes, Joanne?
Is this area going to need increased staffing this year? Will you be looking at this budget going forward?
You know, Development Services has done fairly well over the last 18 months or so in terms of moderating our staff with our permit activity. That being said, we're not happy with the level of the permit activity in the community, and we'd like to see more robust growth. But we do not anticipate the need for additional staffing in planning and zoning this year. One of our positions was vacated and is currently up for filling, and we have changed that position a little bit so that it will be a planner as well as an architectural expert, and we've had some good success in the recruitment process, we think, and we hope that that will bring a new aspect to those services which Development Services can provide, such as site plan discussion or renderings or scale models, or also be a service to our facilities group in their efforts in terms of conceptualizing future plans and future sites, both public and private. So
That sounds wonderful, because I think that will also help with the customer service. They'll be, visual in that regard and being able to kind of foresee things that others aren't thinking. No, that's fabulous. Good.
We are very excited about that, and we think they bring another aspect, which is the whole site integration piece that we discussed during the design guidelines, which allows us to better evaluate this, not only the building on the site, but all of the elements surrounding and the landscaping into the site. Moving on to the building safety group, we have our chief building officer, Ed Kulik, and we have 4 technicians in the building safety group that manage the front desk area, as we've discussed, and are very excited about what the year ahead has to hold in terms of our process changes and the potential to improve their physical work environment. We have a records analyst that helps us with all of our retention and, of course, records requests. Our plans examining team is 4 people, 2 straight plans examiners, 1 fire plan review and inspector, and 2 plans examining from the building safety side. So this team is the robust team that you would equate to what we talked about in engineering last evening, that's doing the plan review activities both on the commercial and private side of development. On the inspection supervisor side, as we talked about, we have a new person in our team, Randall Westacott. We have 1 building inspector 3 and a building inspector 2 of those. And then this third item, the temporary, is part of our supplemental from the previous year. We had 1 full-time temporary position that has been filled quite successfully by April Torres. And I would say that this is the one area where, as we talk later about our performance measures, we are doing a good job of maintaining on the inspection side, but with the use of this temporary employee. So something to be sensitive to. In addition, council awarded us a half-time temporary position supplemental this past year. And we through the first 3 months of the year, were able to determine that we did not anticipate the need for that position, and so did not fill the position. And I think that's important to note as well. Code compliance officers, as we discussed, there are 3 on our team. So again, most, and I actually say all of the building safety elements fell into quartile 1, and those are plan review for construction and permit issuance, building construction and inspections, building occupancy decisions, enforcing the city's building, electrical, mechanical, and plumbing codes. And as we've discussed previously, we anticipate bringing to you here before the end of the year, with the help of legal, the 2012 codes for adoption. And as we've discussed previously, over the last 6 months, we've been allowing projects to submit under the 2012 codes as an exception, so that we're getting our development team on track and ready to submit plans under those conditions. And we've received a lot of excitement. We've been reviewing different exceptions and different sections of the code that we want to include, and I think that'll be an interesting discussion in the next couple of weeks. The Code Compliance Division, the City Code interpretations on property maintenance, zoning, variances, signages, and our response to citizen complaints and questions, and also our graffiti abatement program. Graffiti busters, our volunteers. Under building safety, we have about $1.4 million, 14 FTEs, pardon me, and 2% for contractual and commodities. I probably should crack the door on the training discussion here. Most of the building safety group and a good portion of the planning and zoning group actually do take some training dollars out of the administrative training budget, and so there's been a bit of mixing over the past year in terms of just getting the job done and providing that training which the team needs. On the economic development front, we have 3 project managers, of which we've discussed 2 are vacant today. We're very excited about what the future looks like, primarily from a small business advocate perspective, but also from finding what talent's out in the market today in the sectors which we think we're strong and those which we need some help in. So things such as aerospace, medical, technology, manufacturing, high-tech manufacturing. And then, of course, the third development was the addition of our marketing coordinator, Ernie Pruckner. And Ernie has a very full plate. He's working diligently day in and day out with our communications team to bring the website up to speed. He's rewritten that, and they're just about to go live on a beta test of that. Newsletters that we're reaching internal to our workforce and external to the development community. A brand new marketing kit for economic development. We're putting a new face on that as we receive feedback through the Focus on Success and our ULI TAP study. And then also helping us with brochures and informational videos, YouTube videos, as was suggested last year, about the how-to of development services, and we're very excited about what that looks like. Certainly any of our public relations related issues, and and with the potential of grand openings and events. So that will be Ernie's plate for the future. And again, all of that integrated with Romina and the communications team under Shireen. The Economic Development Team manages our site selection process for office, industrial, and retail primarily. Redevelopment projects, any business announcements or business assistance, business registrations, and I'm happy to report that we had about 1,361 businesses register this past year, and we're staying relatively stable.
What was that number again?
1,361 businesses, and they're staying relatively stable. And when we think about our workforce in Goodyear, the numbers that we received from the Focus on Success study, we have about 22,000 people in the workforce. So again, a reminder that many of these are small businesses, and so we have a good bit of effort to do in reaching out to them and finding out what their needs are and helping them grow.
Sherry?
And I hope you're continuing this. About 2 weeks ago, we got a list of the new businesses, like every quarter, that have moved in and an address, and so we know where they're at and everything, and I really like that, because there's some areas I don't get to as much. I know what's, maybe in my shopping center, so I really like that. I assume everybody else did, if we could keep that up there, because that's great.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Do we know how many businesses have marketing on the internet? We talked about that from the Conference of Mayors, and are we using, are we communicating with them on those sites? Do we communicate with them? Do we send them certain things out? Are we going to market it that way,
Mayor, excellent suggestion. Nationwide, we understand that probably less than 15% of businesses are on the internet with their message, which is probably shocking to most of us. And I'm not sure how skewed those numbers are, metro versus rural, and all of those good things. But certainly a wake-up call to those of us who need to reach out.
I guess we're not doing that Google this year that I brought back from the Conference of Mayors about, building. Contacting business, making sure they're online, they have a site, all of that. I know there was a program of sorts we talked about.
Mayor, if I might, that is actually one of our strategic initiatives in place with the Southwest Valley Chamber to
Okay.
achieve this year. So it's in our work plan for
Okay,
this
so
year.
they're going to work with us on
They
that.
are.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
we're very excited about that. Thank you. I'm taking some notes here. Okay. And then, of course, the small business advocate position, and as we discussed earlier, we have a very robust work plan for that individual when they arrive in the new position. Not only the BR&E program, which encompasses many aspects, the day in and day out outreach to our small business community, understanding their needs and the services which we can provide or bring into the community. Also doing the business surveys, so understanding exactly where they are and if they're growing and what they're moving into and what their industry is. So we have a better idea of what we have here in terms of the small business community. And then there's the ongoing events, such as the Small Business Summit and the Shop Goodyear initiative, which we hope to make more of a year-round deal with some end-of-the-year splash to it. So as that person gets on board, we'll be reaching back out to you to understand better what your expectations are, and we'll be doing some focus groups with the small business community and the chamber to have a better idea of what the needs are. And then, of course, the marketing strategies for the city in general, which we've discussed with the marketing position, and then the implementation of the Focus on Success strategy for economic development. A huge number of initiatives, as you recall, were in the first 3 years of that plan, and so we're going to get on our cart and go and make sure that we're delivering all the promises we had with that as well. We've gotten quiet, so please tell me just to move on if you're ready to go. Economic development, $610,000 of our $3.7 million budget, 68% of which is personnel. And so you notice within the economic development category, more of the resources are shifted towards our outreach efforts, which involves trade shows, events, seminars, conferences, local meetings, and travel where we need to get out and engage with those types of businesses we want to have here in Goodyear.
Do we track GPEC and the things they're doing for us? Do we have a figure on, do we have the information on that, that is transferable to the council, how many contacts and what and so forth? I think that would be really good information if we could get that out to them to let them know. Because we're out socially and we're hearing, from other cities, well, we're doing this, what was a GPEC lead and so forth. And I think it would be helpful to our council.
Mayor, it would be our pleasure to share those numbers, and we do have them.
All right, thank you.
Yes, and we also internally have been working on a better reporting tool for you to see on a monthly basis as to prospects more broadly, the source and the types of prospects that we're working with. The code compliance team of our 3 mighty field representatives, managing to keep our neighborhoods beautiful, educate our citizens on the city property code, building relationships with the neighborhoods and the neighborhood associations, providing information about the code on zoning, variances, and signage requirements and maintenance, field inspections, responding to citizen complaints, and working with our graffiti busters, graffiti abatement team. $277,000 rather of our $3.7 million budget is allocated to code compliance, which is 89% personnel, 11% contractual. That also includes our graffiti abatement materials, et cetera, and our code enforcement books and training.
Joanne?
This is sort of your department, sort of not. It's also neighborhood services, but I just thought I would kind of give you a heads up of areas to be watching within our city, of possibility of a second wave of housing issues, and I'll talk to you about that later. But there's been some concern that I've been given, and I just think that we should be watching for those things, not necessarily foreclosures, but in a different sense.
Very good.
People abandoning property?
Well,
You got to give us some kind of...
I know, that's
You
bad.
can't throw that
right?
information out.
It's more of a leaving of areas of selling and moving on. And seeing, and so, in the past, when we were seeing on foreclosures, we were seeing the vacancy rates. And I don't know if we've been watching that yearly since, we're starting to come back up. But I've had discussions with schools that are noticing changes in neighborhoods. And so those are the things that I was
You
thinking
mean the
of.
number of
And
students
vacancies,
leaving
yes,
the
yes. And in
schools.
new areas that wasn't in previous times. And so I don't want to cause alarm, but I just want it to be on our,
Well, it would be helpful to know so that we can track it. And,
right.
Sure. I will definitely visit with you and see if we can reach out to the schools and understand better what those patterns are. Very good information. All right, moving on to the supplementals from our previous year. We've talked about many of these, so I'll run through them, and please stop me if we have any questions. We were given about $40,000 in our efforts to recruit higher education and in our marketing as well. And we have been working through what that looks like from all of the elements of the marketing coordinator's role, and we'll be expending those resources largely between now and the end of June, but may have a bit of carryover for the next year to ensure that we have everything we need once we get the new marketing kit put back together and realize we forgot, a piece here or there. But that's what that dollar had been used for over the previous year. Our economic development strategic planning effort, Focus on Success, we wrapped up here just a couple of weeks ago. Our license plate or retail study as we conducted throughout the year, and then our ability to retain the retail coach throughout the year for consulting and assistance with our recruitment process. The Urban Land Institute TAP study, and that was a very successful initiative, and I think we felt very fortunate to have a group of 13 talented experts in the community giving us advice on what our next steps should be. From I-10 to MC-85, from Estrella to Litchfield, we got some very good feedback on the unique opportunities within those corridors. And we'll be back to council here in about the next month with the report and the recommendations. Temporary inspector, we talked about that. We did fill the temporary inspector full-time. We did not fill the temporary inspector half-time position and left that vacant and returned the money to the budget. In seminars and conferences, as you will recall, we had a situation where many of the divisions had swept their seminars and conferences training budgets completely with the recession, and so we were able to allocate $8,000 back to the Building Safety Division to do their training and upgrading for the 2012 codes this year. General plan update, as we've all been a part of, was a robust process, and hope to vote here in November of 2014 to the electorate for a decision on that as well. And then the final piece was our higher education recruitment, and we have not expended dollars there, and so we will be here in the RFP process and whatever is advised from that as well. To the organizational efficiencies, I think some decisions seem modest, some seem significant, some had really significant impact, and so I just wanted to be sure that we cover a few of the things that the team was able to identify and the changes that resulted. In the development industry, time is money, that's what they tell us, and so while all of these don't have dollar amounts with them, some of them are efficiencies that translate to time and are very important to our development partners. For example, in the electronic plan review, we were able again to coordinate with engineering and IT and get the electronic plan review implemented. We think over time this will significantly reduce turnaround times on our plan reviews and reduce handoffs between departments where we were having errors in the past or lack of communication. The most important thing that we can gain from this is our communication back to our customers earlier in the process. And so we're very excited about the electronic plan review component. Permits by email. This was one where the front desk team had an idea, and they realized that many of the permits for gas lines, pools, PV cell installation, many of the things that we were doing could be done simply by emailing in a permit and paying their fee online. And so through this process, we not only did we reduce the time from 2 weeks to about 2 days, but we also reduced the foot traffic into the front desk by 60 to 70%. It's an incredible reduction in not only fees to the development community in terms of runners, but also the efficiency of their turnaround times on permits. So the permits could actually be issued electronically as well, so there's no face-to-face component of that project, and it's a wonderful. The permits by appointment is very similar, where people can call and schedule an appointment with our development services team, come in with their development team, and that same day they can receive their permits on the spot. And that is going extremely well also. And many of those permits were things that might have been in the process 3 to 4 weeks. So it's a huge change. And what we recognized through those two pieces was while we want to consider all plans in our process equal in terms of their submittal date, first come, first serve, we may recognize that they're not equal in terms of the time required to review them or in terms of the urgency of the project. And so there does need to be some discretion used in getting those projects out, which we can more quickly. And that process has resulted in a much more efficient turnaround time. Informational brochures, as we talked about with the marketing person, we've been working diligently to get many of those out and have drafts and videos ready to go as the final process is put in place. Submittal deadline and hearing brochures, much the same. We're working on all of those with our 5 divisions and our planning applications as well. One thing that we're evaluating, as we call ourselves a one-stop shop, is the potential to have one permit instead of 50 different pieces of paper that might be confusing to our development partners. And so we're looking at that innovation as well. Integration, as we've talked about, with the fire team and the fire marshal into our permitting process, and then incorporation of the business license process. This is probably one that has resulted in a very high level of efficiency, but also customer service, as the client is now able to receive their notice electronically for their renewal, pay online, and receive the renewal electronically without ever coming into the office. If they should choose to come into the office, they have the option where they can not only fill out the application, but file it and pay for it all in the same location, where they previously had to go to at least 2, if not 3 locations to do that effort. So
That's great. So these are all in place now, all of these
correct, Mayor.
efficiencies?
Yes, they are.
And so have we heard feedback from some of the clients on this?
We have, and we probably need to do a little better job of soliciting that input.
Yeah, I think we'd appreciate that, because that's really on how we can tell the temperature gauge going, and also that we're able to use that when we're out publicly again. If somebody has a complaint, we have questions to ask them. Well, did you do it this way, or did you follow that process, or? Okay, so that's great. Okay.
Excellent. We'd like to be able to share some of those successes. Moving on to the performance measures.
Georgia.
Bill?
Sherry, before you go into the performance measures, I just want to make an observation on the efficiencies piece. Much like the fire department, I'm going to say it wasn't that long ago that you came on board, but I think it was a little longer than a year ago. But all of these efficiencies, we start talking about reducing the numbers of papers and a true one-stop shop and all of these other things. This is really what I think the creation, much to the city manager's credit, the Development Services Department, right? Yeah. Was all about. And even with the, I think we're never going to please everyone. So even with whatever complaints we hear, this kind of activity and the things that we've done, I think really are, we can't necessarily put dollar figures to these efficiencies, but the fact that we can offer this level of service to our community is really important. So I know, we've looked at 21 slides up until this point, but it all comes down to these, 8 or 9 bullets. And everybody, between building safety and code compliance, the planning staff, everybody, that's what this is, the end of the day. So I greatly appreciate hearing this and seeing that, we are getting somewhere. So thank you.
Joe?
Just to piggyback a little bit, you probably can't put dollars on all of those, but I would bend the vigor some of it you can with your electronic filing and those type of things. I suspect you're saving some time with the staffing, not only from a customer service standpoint, because they're getting it quicker, and time's money to them, so there's value to them as well, but also from staff as far as some of the issues we've had in the past with the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. Now, not only more efficient, they can get more process and more work done as a result of the electronics. So somewhere down the road, as we start to move through the budget, see what you can do to kind of quantify some of that a little bit. Not right now, not right
I
now.
suppose to speed up your responses from the
Yeah.
client, or, really. that-
Yeah, I'm not looking for it right now,
Yeah.
but just,
That has to be an advantage now to everyone.
to me, time is money. So.
Yeah. I agree. Bill well said, Joe well said. I think it's great that we finally come to this point. Any other comments?
I have one quick question before
Yes, Sherry?
And I wasn't sure, we talked a little bit about your training budget and everything. Does that include, because I know you guys have to go to the conferences, like the shopping mall conference, I don't know, the retail, all those conferences. Is that included in that, or is that separate? Is that something, are we hitting enough of those, or are they all the same? I don't know, if you could explain.
Councilmember Lortano, thank you for the question. So, there was a bit of thought that went into providing the training and travel numbers amongst all the departments, and so we did a breakdown this afternoon to look, and for example, we were able to attend about 6 trade shows this year, and each of those trade shows typically, and depending upon the training and so forth, typically run about $3,000 all in, and because they're not offered locally, right? Our prospects typically aren't in our backyard, they're in Chicago or somewhere of that nature. So things such as Cornet, which is the Fortune 500 corporate real estate team, the ICSC, the International Council of Shopping Centers Conference, and the Maintenance and Repair organization was in Atlanta this year, for example. So bioindustry, data center conference, things of that nature. So we did have a fairly robust travel schedule, and we were out, about once a month. I think we can do more. So we'll look at that this year and try to be strategic. Certainly, you didn't hear a lot of medical conferences, and so what does that look like? Healthcare.
So they are kind of broken, they're sectorized, with like medical would have a different trade show or different presentation for us to present to than somebody else.
Correct, yes, they are, yeah. And then on the training side, we were able to do 3 IEDC training courses this year, which allowed 2 of our staff members to try for their training, so to almost get to the point. And in fact, Christian Green was able to achieve his certification this year. And then Harry Paxton was able to maintain his training as well. And then there were 2 statewide conferences that the team was able to attend, which are more of the kind of best practices conversation and so forth. So that's very exciting. In addition, there were 3 GPEC trade missions that were attended, Chicago, Anaheim, and I couldn't find the last one before we got here, so my apologies, but we'll get that one to you as well. And we're looking more strategically at those for next year because they've changed their format significantly over the course of the last year. They're being much more selective in terms of the number of folks traveling and who they're meeting with while they're in market. And I think there's great great value that's coming from that today. So we're evaluating what those look like. Unfortunately, we ran out of money before we got to the ability to do some of those. We'd already committed, several months in advance to some of these trade shows before we knew what the opportunity looked like. And then there is the Small Business Summit and a couple of the local conference types events that we participated in, whether through sponsorship or others, that make up those dollars. So they're not strictly training dollars.
Well, and because those type of conferences bring money back here with businesses, same thing I think we said with fire, I think we all want to make sure that you have the flexibility to come back if something comes up that has been changed, and like, this is a good opportunity to get in front of the biomedical or somebody for our city.
Thank you. I appreciate the feedback and the question. Excellent. Okay, so moving on to the performance measures, and again, a selective smattering of those things which our peers across the country were looking at and those which we thought might be important to address. And so the first chart that you see here is the percentage of plan reviews completed within the published review cycle times. We had some discussion last evening about what those published review cycle times are. In development services, typically those are 15 and 10-day turnarounds. I say that typically because we have about 6 major categories that we use in development services, and we have probably 15 different categories we use in planning, and engineering has another smattering of their own. So one of our goals through this one-stop shop is to reduce those turnaround times as close as we can to one turnaround time that makes sense to the development community and to our staffing levels. And so that is something that we are, with the help of Tim Fisher and the Human Resources team, evaluating actual man hours for each process that we do and how we can be more efficient in that process. But typically today, our turnaround times are 10 days on the first review and 5 on the second. But to that end, I will tell you we've been hitting that about 100% of the time of the last 2 months, and for the last 8 months we've had significant process improvement that has allowed us to go from 68% July of last year to 100% in March of this year. I would say that a lot of those things that we saw on the last slide have contributed to this. Standard operating procedures for the front desk team was a big piece of it. Not losing plans, filing plans in the correct place, doing the same procedure each time, and communicating to the client the same way each time, the expectation of their submittals. And then a bit of work on the client coordination piece as well. As we all know, this is a two-way street in terms of if we do our part, you can do your part, bit of a garbage in, garbage out. So the success of the initial submittal and the quality really translates into the amount of time in the process. So we're not giving up. There's another piece to this which we're actively working on today, which is the pre-application process, and I've not talked about that yet today, but we're actively looking at potentially requiring and even charging a fee for the pre-application process, which many communities do, and requiring their development team to be present for the process, which on the front end for that we would give them an entire interdepartmental review and comments at their very first meeting. So again, a more efficient turnaround process based on more work and more thorough effort on the front end. Not all projects would necessarily go through that, but we think that's a more efficient way to process plans moving forward.
Joe?
Just a comment, if you're seeing that you're hitting 100% over the next several months, you might want to think about squeezing out a little bit.
Thank you.
No, shortening the time.
Agreed. And that is a goal of our process. Thank you. So this is a different slide that talks about the number of permits issued within 7 days. This is quite revealing because on average, our departments have been doing fairly well in terms of our promised turnaround times, but they've been doing even better than that. So while there are places in the past where we were at 100% within 7 days, and I would say typically lower volume years, but 2013 wasn't a bad year, we have been able to achieve pretty good success in getting our permits out within a 7-day period. So not the posted 20 and 5 or 10 and 5, but within a 7-day period. Graffiti removal, this is one that the team works very hard on, and of course, understanding that we work with our Graffiti Busters volunteer group, I think this is a pretty significant number that they're out there removing the graffiti within 24 hours, and of course, we could not do this without our public safety partners on the streets, our eyes out there that help us, report the incidents and get the photos taken in a timely manner.
Yeah, to me, that's very important.
I agree.
Georgia.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sharon.
Is this being done by staff, the graffiti removal these days? Or is the volunteer program pretty much done, or?
Chuck has been really active this last year with the Graffiti Busters, and he has 2 or 3 volunteers that work with him. And then, of course, we do have the contract graffiti removal in those instances where it's on public property. We have a third-party contractor that can come out and remove the graffiti in a timely manner. But it's not always one or the other. It just kind of depends who's available and what the timing looks like. But in most cases, we do find it has some sort of lewd content, and so we want it removed as soon as possible. And so we'll go with that, which is most efficient and not always the least cost-effective, but often the volunteers are. So the number of new prospects in economic development, those numbers have been going up. We're happy to report from the 2013 timeframe. On average, we're seeing, in the 35 to 45 numbers of prospects. This gets to our reporting mechanism that we discussed earlier, and having a better breakdown that we can communicate and share about those types of prospects we're seeing and what their real interest is. A prospect might be that which is sent to us by the Greater Phoenix Economic Council or the Arizona Commerce Authority, but which is not a fit for our community, whether it's real estate or type of business or whatever that might be. And certainly we cast a wide net when we're considering whether we're eligible, so we try to go for that which we think we have any chance of success with and is a good fit. So, but the numbers have been relatively stable over the last 2 years. Before this, our prospect activity was waning down into the 20s or so on an average per year, but we did not have really strong data to share with you, so we just thought we'd give that which we actually had to share. This last slide is a bit of a misnomer. The top graph does not actually depict what it says it does, so I'd like us to not do that one for this evening. But the bottom graph, I think, is important. And this demonstrates the conversation that we've been having about the number of inspections. Our inspectors, on average, we try to keep them at about 45 inspections a day. So if you think about the amount of time that it takes to drive and get in and out of your car and write up the paperwork and have the conversation with the development team on site. They're pretty aggressive and they work really hard in the field, and that keeps them very busy. And on average, we've been in about that range. We've been a little bit under for the last few months, but prior to that, we were at or above, and so that's why we had requested the temporary inspection assistance last year. As you all are aware, in 2010, for example, we had 504 single-family permits, 2011, 579, 2012, 961, 2013, 916 single-family permits, and we're projecting today, if the numbers stay where they are, somewhere in the 850 to 900 range for 2014. So the inspection load, not only from the single-family but the commercial side, has been fairly consistent. So this allows us to track those measures. And then down to the priorities for 14-15. Certainly getting the adoption of the general plan in order and getting us on board with using that from a staff and planning perspective in the development community. Our one-stop shop initiative that we're undertaking with our partners here in the city, and our outreach to the development community to get their feedback and make sure that we've got it, tweaked just right. Our design guideline implementation, we're very excited about that and have had several engagements with the development community over the course of the last 3 months, getting their feedback, and it's been outstandingly positive to date, so we're very excited, and very constructive conversation. Customer service through meeting and reviewing our inspection timelines, absolutely critical, and this is one of our top priorities for this year. We get the process right, but we also need to make sure that we're answering the needs of our customers, so top focus. Implementation of our economic development strategic plan, focus on success, and that's, as I said, a very aggressive plan in the first 3 years, and we'll be putting our team right to the street when they get hired, so we're excited about having that very clear direction for the team, but also understanding that which our business community has told us is a fit for future growth. We're very excited about that, and that which Council has given us direction on as well. The small business advocate position, that's very crucial, and we expect to have that hired here over the next couple of months, and they have a full plate as well, as we've heard from you this year. And then finally, our higher education strategy and recruitment, and that will be a top priority, and we'll be expecting that RFP here in the next couple of months, and our consultant on board. And again, our intention is not to go back to the beginning. Our intention is to use the benefit of all the conversation and education that we've had along the way in this recruitment, so we can be very aggressive.
Questions? Molly?
I don't have a question, Sherry, but I just would like to thank you and your department for stepping up and doing what you're doing. It's amazing to see that we're able to accomplish so much in such a little time. And I just don't know how you have time to do all that you're doing, but thank you so very much.
Any other comments? Thank you. Thank you very much. And we are going to take a break, okay? We've been in this seat for a while, so
Let me look. Sorry.
What are we looking for?
Here she is. Okay.
So we got...
Oh, well, I'll be back. I'm just going to grab it.
So next on the list, thank you, everybody, for waiting for us to go on our break. But I think we're all rejuvenated. So, Kim, are we now on technology? All right. Go ahead. Please introduce yourself for the public that's listening to us.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Dan Cotterman, IT Director, and happy to be here this evening to present the IT Department's fiscal year 14 base budget. And as usual, please interrupt me at any point if you have a question. The overview, the agenda is going to be the same as all the presentations you've already seen. The first thing I want to do tonight is highlight some of the key IT projects and strategies and how they align to the city's strategic action plan. The first is the ERP replacement project. This is one we've discussed a few times. This important effort is currently in the RFP process, and we anticipate having a vendor selected by the end of the fiscal year. As you know, this project is a major undertaking and will be our primary focus over the next year and beyond, and it will greatly improve our operational efficiencies and business processes when complete. IT security is one of those things that is never done, so this is going to be on our strategy probably every year going forward, and we're going to be constantly working to improve our posture. One strategy that I am personally very excited about is promoting paperless process. We're looking at ways of replacing traditional pen and paper with electronic forms. And so one example, we're in the process of deploying a mobile app for HR staff to use for safety inspections and exit interviews. And they'll fill out these forms on their mobile device, and when they hit submit, it'll get automatically sent to the appropriate personnel, saving a ton of time and effort. One of our challenges has been the large number of outdated IT systems that are in need of replacement or upgrades. And we've made significant progress over the past year, but we're a long way from complete.
Can I ask a question? Yes, Sherry, please.
You heard, I hear on the news recently that XP isn't being, do we have XP? Are we having to upgrade? What do we do? What are we doing?
So the city has been running on XP as a standard desktop operating system, and we are in the process of replacing that with Windows 7. We're not done yet, but we're getting very close, and so we should be off of that by the end of next month, sorry. So on the IT replacements, we've made significant improvements, still have a long way to go. This will continue into next year. And then lastly, I mentioned to you previously that we're working towards an IT governance model that will optimize our processes using the adoption of best practices and industry standards. Although this is a multi-year effort, I'm proud to report that we've successfully implemented one module already, and we're looking to implement 2 modules this calendar year. Through the implementation of this framework, we're not only making our department more efficient and our work product higher quality, we are standardizing how we do things and making it easier for vendors and consultants to do business with us. Ultimately, this contributes to projects being more successful, taking less time, and reducing risk.
Can I ask a quick question?
Of course you can.
This may not be the appropriate department, and if it isn't, I apologize, but is our city able to pay our bills all electronically?
I would probably defer
The
that
wrong
question.
department? Larry? Sorry. A yes or no is fine.
We pay a good portion, but I think we're in the 60% range that are done electronically and others that are still done manually.
Okay, I know there's some that want checks.
Right.
I'm talking about payroll not necessarily just payroll, but for our vendors?
The vendors, or
Can-
what I was referring to
Yeah,
was the vendors.
just the vendors. Well, can we eventually ever get where we're paperless for that as well?
It's getting the vendors to agree to it. We
Okay.
often have vendors that might be actually individuals and.
They don't use PayPal, huh?
Exactly.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Here's an org chart of the department as of July of 2013. Please note that since this time, we've made an organizational change to better align with the needs of the city, and I will go into those changes when we get to the affected division. The department is comprised of 3 divisions: administration, technical support and services, and application development and support. This year, due to one-time supplementals, the department is 4.5% of the city's budget, with personnel representing 41% of the department's budget and 59% going to commodities and contracts. I think it's important to note that we have consolidated all city software maintenance for the into the department's budget, which accounts for 30% of that 59%. Now looking at each division and programs, the first is Administration Division, which provides project management, oversight for IT projects, and ensures that IT investments are appropriate and aligned with the city's objectives and existing investments. This division is also responsible for ensuring that the department's activities are consistent with the city's strategic action plan and management's objectives. This division manages the software and hardware maintenance contracts and is responsible for the IT asset management system. Please note that the security administrator position shown on this division no longer resides there, and I'll explain that with the organizational change when I get to the technical services division slide. The administration division's budget is $1.6 million, with 23% covering personnel costs, 64% contractual, and 13% commodities. I also want to note that one-time supplementals for web redesign and PCI compliance are represented in this division's budget. Applications Development and Support Division is responsible for end-to-end management of all city-owned software applications. In some cases, we've developed systems, and in other cases, we've bought them off the shelf from vendors. This division is the one that worked with HR to write the new performance appraisal system and is working with communications on our new website. This division will also be heavily involved in the new ERP replacement project. The Applications Division is responsible for business analysis and working with each department to help determine their needs when designing or selecting a new software system, as well as making sure that users know how to use the systems. Our analysts are also assigned to specific departments so that they can learn the business practices in each of those departments and help bring technology to meet their needs. This is an area where we've seen a major increase in demand for services over the past year, with almost all departments looking to implement new technology or enhance existing systems. We are doing the best we can to address all the needs, but it's definitely a challenge given the volume of requests coming in. The Application Development and Support Division's budget is $800,000, with 98% covering personnel costs, 2% contractual, and less than 1% on commodities. Technical Support and Services Division is responsible for designing, implementing, and supporting the city's IT infrastructure. You might be saying, what is IT infrastructure? So infrastructure includes network, security systems, telephone systems, email services, PCs, servers, storage, mobile devices, and related systems. This division has been pretty busy this past year with several large projects. A few of them that you probably have heard of would include the computer replacements, the upgrade to Windows 7 and Office 2013, as well as the new PD telecommunications building. Additionally, this is the division that was affected by the organizational change that I mentioned earlier. Prior to the change, we had a single employee responsible for managing all of the city's IT security systems. Even though he's one person, he was doing a great job. But with this change, we ended up combining the security and infrastructure responsibilities, and allowing more than one person to be able to support those areas. I feel this change really improved our ability to support the systems, keep them safe, and support us for the future. The Technical Support and Services Division's budget is $1.6 million, with 29% covering personnel costs, 16% contractual, and 55% commodities. Also, another one-time supplemental was represented in this division's budget with the computer replacements. Fiscal year 13 supplementals, so thank you for these. These were the supplementals you approved and allow us to work on this year. The first one was PCI compliance, or payment card industry compliance. This is a set of steps that must be taken to ensure that credit card transactions are safe and secure. Obviously, this is important to us and something that we wanted to do. And this supplemental was to allow us to change the way that we handle credit card transactions so that we can improve the security of them. I will elaborate a little bit more on what we did on the next slide. Next, computer replacement supplemental. We have replaced many computers this year, but as I mentioned, we're far from done on that. And we're expecting the remainder of those funds to be requested to carry over to next year so that we can get caught up. And last but not least is the web content management system, which you probably know better as the website redesign project. Council received an update from us several weeks back about this project, and we are still tracking to an end of June launch. We're also working on scheduling a time in the next few weeks for you to come in and actually test drive the system before it goes live. So you can look forward to that invite.
It's exciting.
I have a question.
Yes, Molly?
How many computers do we have?
We have approximately 520.
And you're trading out half of them each year?
We have a 5-year life cycle on them, so about 20% per
Each
year.
Okay. Thank you.
Looking at efficiencies, we've implemented several efficiencies during the year. I'd like to highlight a few of them for you. The first was the organizational change that I mentioned, which allowed us to combine roles and spread out responsibilities among several staff. We introduced video conferencing technology that allows staff to hold virtual meetings with folks in other city buildings or in other remote locations. This capability helps reduce travel costs and time associated with meeting travel, and allows for more successful meetings than the traditional just voice-only conferencing that was available. We expect the interest in this technology to grow as staff become more aware of its availability. As I mentioned earlier, we're implementing a mobile app for staff to replace paper forms with electronic mobile forms. We've received very positive feedback so far and expect to see that technology continue to grow. We have deployed a number of new SharePoint solutions this year, including the Employee Performance Management System and the Risk Management Claim Process. These are just a few examples of how we are leveraging this technology and will continue to promote the system in the future. One upcoming use of SharePoint will be the new intranet or e-site when the new external website goes live. It's hard to put a dollar amount on the value that has created for us, but it is helping create a more collaborative environment across departments. We already discussed how PCI compliance supplemental improved the security of credit card transactions, but I didn't cover how efficient the solution was that we chose. We chose to go with a vendor who provided a secure service. And so instead of us doing it in-house and having to spend a lot of money on technology, we were able to use a service that was secure to do that. And the efficiency saved us roughly $140,000 in technology purchases and a quarter of an FTE's time. And lastly, virtualization technology. It's been a way for us to become more efficient in the data center. Virtualization is a technology that allows us to consolidate computer systems and to get better utilization out of hardware. It's kind of technical, so I apologize, but I'll try to explain it. We can run 10 virtual servers on one physical server now, which eliminates the need to buy 9 physical servers. And yes, that one server that we end up buying is a little bit bigger and costs a little bit more, but you can imagine taking up a lot less footprint in the data center, using a lot less space, power, and cooling. And so this is a key technology for us we'll continue to leverage. And at a minimum, it saved us $87,000
Okay.
to date.
You just answered my
Okay,
question.
Nancy, you're all right, Joe?
While we're on a break.
Bill?
So, again, we've been, at least I've been reading a lot about the cloud computing and how that is having an impact on local government and government in general. Where do you see that fitting into our overall equation?
It's definitely something we have to consider every time a need arises. And one of the more obvious uses for it, in my mind, is for email. And so that's something that we're looking at in this next year, is to see if the what's called Office 365, it's a Microsoft-hosted email solution, is the right fit for us. And so we're going through that analysis right now to see how much we could potentially save by doing that. But we are looking at cloud computing each time an opportunity is brought up, including ERP. That's a conversation we're having.
Great, thanks.
Joe?
Cloud computing, is that something that allows you to free up your storage because it's going somewhere else, basically?
Yes. In essence, the server is in somebody else's data center, and you're just connecting to it, and you don't know, from an end user perspective, you can't tell the difference, but somebody else is paying the cost for all that equipment.
Security is not an issue, or?
It can be an issue, but if you go with a vendor who's certified with the right levels, and you have the right SLAs and contracts in place, it can be very secure.
Okay, thank you.
Next, I'm going to show you a few examples of the IT department's performance measures. This particular metric that I'm showing here is the percent of recommended workstation security pattern updates applied. And there's a few reasons.
That's a little technical.
These are the antivirus updates that we apply to workstations, if you will. And there's a few reasons that these would be less than 100%. We could have a laptop that's off-site and away from a network. We could have a desktop that's turned off. We could have a PC recently replaced but still shows in our asset database as active. So the trends here look very positive and within what we'd expect to see. The second example is the percent of network equipment preventative maintenance completed. This one's not as positive. This measurement is to track how many network devices we were able to perform preventative maintenance on. And as you can see, we haven't been able to address this need, which is due to the workload and priorities in the department. And projects and reactive work have been taking up the bulk of staff's time, and we're spending less time on the proactive programs. You might ask, what's the risk of this work not being done? There's a few potential risks. For example, we could be missing warning messages that something bad's about to happen on the device. We could be out of date on features and security functionality. But ultimately, the performance on the devices could degrade over time if we're not doing the preventative maintenance on them. And we are hoping to begin making progress in this area next fiscal year. I am looking to lower the target from 100% to 25% to be more realistic for us. Next example is the percent of projects completed within established budget. This is an area we've done very well with, and I expect to continue to do so. And the last example we have tonight is the mean time to resolution metric. This measures how long it takes us on average to resolve a desktop issue, an issue with an MDC for an officer, or similar problems that are reported to us. You can see by the historical results we've been able to make some pretty good improvements here. And it's my goal to continue that trend if possible. Our target has been 48 hours, but I'd like to see that get to 24 hours in the near future, as that means that our customers are able to get back to work sooner. Challenge will be, finding a balance between an increase in workload and improved response times. We have a number of priorities for fiscal year 15. The first being the ERP replacement project, which I think we've covered pretty well, so I'm going to leave that one alone. Another priority is finding more ways to take advantage of mobile technologies. This is becoming more important as we witness the proliferation of mobile devices in our world. This applies to both staff-focused applications as well as citizen-facing applications. We need to start thinking about ways to extend capabilities to mobile devices in addition to traditional methods. And one of the ways that we plan to enhance our mobile outreach is through a new citizen-facing mobile app that should be going live around the same time as the new website. And quite excited about that. You'll be able to see city events, city services, get information, contact information, that type of thing. And then we'll be building on that platform over time to add new functionality. And as technology becomes more important to the way we conduct business at the city, it puts additional workload on the department. Well, it's a good thing we're becoming more efficient, leveraging technology to become more efficient. It creates an additional demand on the IT department, and we need to strategically plan for how we handle that increase in workload. We need to balance the thirst the city has for new technology with the capability of the resources in the department. And these technology requests are needed by the people to do their jobs and for departments to improve their services. But we have to be creative as we look for ways of handling, the demand for services. And I believe we've done a good job in creating and implementing a plan that takes into account the tremendous amount of need across the city, but this will continue to be an area of challenge for us into the next fiscal year. And lastly, there's a great need to focus on further improving the use of and value received from key systems. For example, we've implemented an asset management and work order system for public works and engineering, but it's not used as deeply as it could be in all areas, and other departments in other areas could be getting more value out of that tool. But you get out of it what you put into it, and it takes time to do that. And so this is an area we'd like to focus on over the next year, is really developing those existing tools. And with that, it's a fluid situation, and if there are any questions.
Thank you, Dan. That's lots of information. We're going to start with Joe.
With technology where it's going, do you ever see it to the point where the laptops, or not the laptops, but your PCs that are sitting on the desks become more like this, more portable in nature, less wiring, more networking, more, Wi-Fi, where they can do the work, take it with them, come back? Do you see it kind of going in that direction, Annie? Are we even getting closer to that? Because I know working outside, you're using tablets to tie into, databases, maybe for planning and zoning, for some of the inspections, so they can go out and record it, and it goes that route as well. So just curious.
Absolutely, and that's one of our key strategies is mobility and enabling that, because workers are become more efficient when they are able to complete a task, where they're at. They're out in the field, they can do that instead of having to take notes, come back to the office, and then do that. So we are piloting a number of devices, trying to find the right fit to see, if somebody is a mobile user, are they a field worker or an office worker? And then I think that there used to be kind of a position that we didn't want laptops or mobile devices in the city, and that's not our position at this time.
Yeah. We've moved on.
Yes.
Look how we've graduated. Sherry?
No, they're
I'm
just.
sorry, you're not
No, I was
finished,
just
Joe?
going to, I did some online classes, and I'm amazed over the last 4 to 5 years where technology was and where it is today, where anywhere I can pretty much stream anything to any student almost any time. So I imagine it's even getting more sophisticated out there on any of these applications for those that are out in the field, et cetera. So I encourage, from my perspective, to me, again, time is money, and anything you can keep them having to come back in with a piece of paper that they can handle right there, to me, it has value. So.
Great, thank you.
Sherry?
Yes, I appreciate the fact you've moved us on from 1980s technology, first of all. I am a little concerned, a couple things you brought up, and I think we need to look at that with the budget, because technology is such a vital part of every department. I don't, and it's nothing against you, I don't like hearing that we aren't getting to preventative with security. I think we need to look at that to make sure that we do have, you have the tools to make sure that those pieces aren't, kind of, I know you've got so many fires you're putting out. I think that's really important. That's a really important area that if we need to look to maybe put more resources. And I know there's cost with employees, but it's so vital for every department and how fast technology moves that you're just not the technology department, you're the police department, you're the fire department, you're the Parks and Rec department. So I want to make sure you have the tools to do your job and to make sure we don't have like a Target situation with credit cards or something, or employees, or our databases are breached. So I just want to make sure we keep up on that. If you need help, that we know.
If I may, you probably, I don't know how you got to our playbook, But we're actually, technology is very important. It is going to get considerable attention this year on the proposed budget, so some more to come, and we'll be talking about that more on April 28th, but it's very, very important, and we recognize that.
And just one more question. When we have that mobile app, can we add a part where, and not just kidding, so the people like Joanne that see the, crack in the street or the thing, is that going to be part of that?
It is, yes. You'll be able to report a problem, and it will actually be integrated with our work order system so that when a citizen takes a picture of that sign that needs to get fixed, it'll get routed to the person who can actually fix it. And they don't have to go log into some separate system or manage it in email.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I like that.
So,
Molly?
will that take the place of my Goodyear app?
It will.
Because that's the one I use every day almost. I know they're sick of me, but
Yep.
I
No,
love my Goodyear app.
that's exactly correct. This app will replace that, but add a bunch more functionality.
Perfect, wonderful. And yeah, good. I have a couple of suggestions, and I'm going to send you a little note
Great.
that it might work easier. Because if you don't want to, well, never mind, I'll tell you, yeah, it's in the reporting. It can be a lot simpler for just the average citizen to report something. So I'll tell you my thoughts on it.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. We have lots of distance to go yet, a great deal of distance to go, but you've come a long way, so.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the telephone and for our
Yeah,
laptops
really.
and everything.
I'll give you a moment, Kim, to get that set up.
We didn't have the telephone support. There you go, Dan. He's been indoctrinated.
Cheering these guys on because they're the last.
No, he's the first one, he's his
I
first
can't believe
presentation
that.
before council.
No, it went fast.
So they're all cheering him.
Well, I have to say, that was very nice on staff's part to support Dan like that. Very nice. You're initiated, Dan.
He's taking notes, who's the requester coming in as they're coming out.
He's ever done this.
Oh, dear.
Bless his heart.
Okay, now we're at Parks and Recreation.
Yay.
Parks, Recreation, and Media.
That's right. and
And
right away.
stadiums.
Mayor and Council, Nathan Torres, Parks and Recreation Director, here tonight to present the budget overview and department overview for our department for this current fiscal year. We'll be reviewing everything as the other departments did, looking at our overall operation efficiencies and our planning efforts. In terms of strategic planning, our strategic planning and community initiatives are in concert with the city's 4 strategic goals. We are fiscally and we are fiscal and resource management through our volunteer efforts, utilizing our volunteer program to maximize savings. I believe this past year we saved well over $200,000 as a result of volunteer utilization. We are economic vitality. You heard me time and time again that a quality Parks and Recreation system not only helps retain current residents and businesses, but it's also a great tool, recruiting tool, to attract new residents and new businesses. In addition, 2 independent studies cite that the ballpark is an economic catalyst for spring training, generating $43 million annually in economic impact related to spring training, and then another $36 million in economic impact for non-spring training events. Remember, 59 events last year, 641 event days. So we are economic vitality. We build community. 68% of our program participants tell us that they're meeting new people and establishing new relationships as a result of participating in our programs. So they're participating, and then they're meeting others, or they're continuing those relationships. We hope they're lifelong in our community. We also, through our community events, are building that community. We allow for opportunities for our residents to gather, like the Goodyear Lakeside Music Festival that just passed, and we had approximately 5,000 people there, or whether it's 14,000 for the 4th of July at the ballpark. We build community. And of course, quality of life. We enhance quality of life. Whether you check out a book and read it in the library, or you take that book to the park and enjoy it there. Or perhaps if you're more active and you're training for a marathon, you're using our parks to run. So in summary, we exercise fiscal and resource management. We are economic vitality. We build sense of community, and we enhance the quality of life.
Sold.
We have
Oh, yeah, me too, sold.
Sold. I'm sorry, that was a real good advertisement.
Yay.
He's good with economics.
That's right. We're very passionate.
We're ready.
We're very passionate about what we do. We have 4 primary divisions, and our leaders of those divisions are here tonight. I'd like to introduce them. First, we have David Side. He's our recreation supervisor.
Hey, David?
David oversees all things recreation. To my right here, we have Jeremy Figueroa. He's our park supervisor.
Yeah, Jeremy.
Jeremy oversees all things parks and right-of-way related. And of course, we have Bruce Kessman, our ballpark manager.
Welcome, Bruce. Woo-hoo, it's his first time.
And then our other division, of course, is art, and that's headed up by Guylene Oslansky, who's not here this evening.
Make sure you point that out to her.
In terms of operating budget, our budget represents about 10% of the city's overall budget, just coming in under $9 million. Some of the main drivers, 48%, or $4.3 million, are personnel. Another main driver, 18%, $1.6 million, is utility related. Okay. In Parks Administration, Parks manages 18 parks, 266 acres, as well as the 23 million square feet of right-of-way. Their primary functions, turf maintenance, irrigation systems, arboreal management, playgrounds, and hardscape, as well as lighting, just to name a few. Total budget for parks, $3.5 million. Again, one of the main drivers to this budget, $870,000, or 25%, is water and utilities. And then $1 million is dedicated to right-of-way maintenance, 28%. In terms of challenges for parks, our largest challenge moving forward, and it has been for the past couple of years, is how do we deal with O&M repair, the rising costs of O&M repair, replacement, and improvement in both areas, the right-of-ways, medians, as well as parks, and how are our parks performing. I'm going to ask Jeremy to talk a little bit about right-of-way medians, the cycles. I know Councilmember Osborne mentioned yesterday about how many times are we getting through the medians and how many cycles are we getting through on an annual basis. So I'm going to turn things over to Jeremy here to talk about right-of-way and medians, and then he will also get into how some of our parks are performing. And this is tied directly to a conversation that we had at a workshop several weeks ago with how some of our parks were performing in comparison to others. So we hope to paint that story for you here tonight. So, Jeremy? And I will say, preface this, Jeremy's very ill this evening, so he's hanging in there. So.
But he's not breathing. Right, you're
He's all
not
right.
breathing on
Oh,
us.
I'm not breathing on anybody,
Yeah,
so don't worry
right.
about it. Mayor, Council. Yeah. Nathan wanted me to kind of lean over on him tonight, but I'm not going to do that. So our right-of-way maintenance, our goal is to, our standard that we've created years back was to complete a total of 3 maintenance cycles throughout our right-of-ways. And when we say total complete cycles, we're talking total landscape maintenance from the tree trimming to shrub trimming, removal of weeds, trash, any DG repairs that are in the medians. Currently, we're doing about 2.2 cycles a year. We have 2 Perryville inmate crews. With the growing number of right-of-ways that we've accepted over the years, we went from meeting that standard of 3 down to the 2.2. We do have the the call-outs that we attend to where it's just weed calls, things like that. We don't account those for the 3 maintenance cycles that we try to complete throughout the year. Excuse me. Our right-of-way crews also, we have 2, thank you. We also have 2 irrigation techs that maintain our right-of-ways as well. And they also help out with the parks maintenance side of our irrigation. So they're just basically, they're putting out fires, if you will, at this point, and also taking work orders from our Perryville crews. As they go through and complete an area, they give our irrigation staff work orders of what they see out there, and then they respond to those needs as well. Now, park audits. There was some discussion, as Nathan said, about the park audits, and wanted to touch on some of those challenges.
Do you have Elmo, please? Passing that out. I've been coughing on it all day.
Let's turn this around.
I was hoping to see it from here, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yes. Can we read it?
Yeah.
All right, if you guys can see this, I'll try to talk you through this a little
Yeah,
bit.
you have to talk me through it, because I couldn't get that close. I still couldn't see it, so.
So one of our performance measures this year is to complete a 90% conditions in each of our 18 parks. Staff audits the parks monthly, and then the foreman goes through and audits their audit, if you will, just to make sure we're on the right track of what's being reported. Everything is a numbering system. Every number has a trigger of who's responsible for taking care of those issues. As you can see, this is Loma Linda Park. The park in March received a percentage of 79% total score. Of that 79%, 11% of that is budget-related issues, and we've identified some of those through our supplemental process and also our CIP projects. Our average park score currently is 78%, so this, as you can see, is one of our higher performing parks. We've also broken up every category that we audit as and it ties back to our priority-based budgeting, whether it's quartile 1, 2, or 3, and it's indicated on the form. Yeah.
So can I ask a quick question for the lighting pole?
Yes.
It says 4 poles out along the pathway, and then you have got it in the budget. Is that to replace the whole pole or just the light bulb?
In Loma Linda Park,
Yeah.
we're currently evaluating that. As it sits, it says a 3, and a 3 it triggers the parks foreman to address it within the 30 days. As soon as it's identified, we mark it as a 3. Staff notifies the foreman, and the foreman, once he evaluates it, he checks to see if is it just a light bulb issue, or is it more of a light pole issue. Once that is determined, then we move it down to a 2. And being that it's a budget-related issue, and how do we plan for that?
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, if it's okay.
Go ahead, Sherry.
When we see vandalism 4, so that means there's not a lot of vandalism? So that's a good thing, or?
4 is minor attention, that it'll be corrected within the 30 days.
Maybe graffiti.
Just a little.
And Loma Linda Park, as you guys know, was just dedicated. We dedicated a new playground there. A brand-new playground. Somebody went through and carved up one of the tables out there.
Oh, God.
So staff identified it right away, and we put that claim into the insurance. So we fully expect to have that repaired within the 30 days, and that's why it's a 4.
Do we have a lot of problem with vandalism overall, or is it pretty much in control?
It's hit and miss. I think it's one of those things where you'll see it in a certain area for a few months, and then it moves out. And I think that's due to just staff trying to eliminate the issues as fast as they can. If there's graffiti, we remove it within 24 hours in the parks, or we notify a graffiti removal.
Heartbreaking.
So I think that's one of the reasons why it kind of comes at first, and then it moves away quickly.
Okay. That's sad.
try and make this bigger for you guys.
Oh, that's nice.
Okay, the next audit here is Estrella South. Same thing. This park this month received a 73%. Of that 73%, 14% is dedicated to budget. And in the notes you'll see staff has the ability to raise this to an 83% just through staff issues, things that we can repair within the 30 days. The 14%, or of that 14%, 12% can be addressed this year through supplementals that you guys have approved this past year for FY14. And then we also noted 18% is going to be addressed in FY15 supplementals, or things that we have supplementals in for this year.
Joe?
Would these, probably for the city manager, any of these requests coming in, would these be one-time money? For the most part?
We did submit these for a one-time request.
Okay, correct.
You got more?
Here's Wildflower North. Wildflower North is one of our underperforming parks. Wildflower North and South are about even when it comes to the percentage of how they perform. This month it's currently at a 67%, and we've seen it fluctuate a few percent, but not much. If you note on the side where the amenities, some of the amenities we asked for in a FY14 supplemental, and those will be taken care of this year. Staff has the ability to correct 50% of this total overall score. The other 50% is all budget related, and we've identified those through an FY14 or FY15 budget requests. And then also we've noted any CIP. This is how we get information for how do we plan for CIP projects, what supplemental requests we're going to be putting in for the year.
Question.
Bill?
So the 250,000 CIP money that we have for parks, that's the CIP that you're referring to, correct?
There are two things, yes, that is.
Which is separate from the supplementals.
Exactly. There are things that we requested to be addressed on both, including supplementals, as well as the 250 for general park improvements. And so that's exactly, the point tonight was to demonstrate the need for that $250 or 250,000 CIP appropriation be general for park improvements, so we can spread it out and bring some of our underperforming parks up to passing level. That would be our goal with those funds.
Sure. Oh, that makes sense. Thanks.
That has to be a community that has a number of children in it.
Oh, it
Small
does.
children. I mean, that's a density there of the young people.
We look forward to getting in there and making a difference.
Joanne?
And it's been about 5 years since we did the last, what we could there at that time, too. I do have a question, though. As different things come, amenities come into play, for example, now pickleball is, the newest thing that, people like to do. When I was at an HOA meeting last week, they asked for Frisbee golf. New things come and go, obviously, but do we ever look at, when I came back from Boston, I said, what about chess tables in parks? People were going crazy over those things. Do we ever look at, those aren't large investment pieces, but they're things that people like to get out and do. Do we look at any of those new kinds of things like that?
We absolutely do, and we do that almost on a daily basis. For example, pickleball courts. We were getting numerous requests for pickleball courts, and we discovered that we can just paint some lines on our existing tennis courts, and they come in with some ties for the net, and we have a court that's now dual purpose. It serves pickleball and it serves tennis, and that's working out. In fact, we just got another request to stripe another tennis court for pickleball just within the past couple of days. In terms of Frisbee golf, that is something that we've looked at in our linear parks, the Bullard Washes, as being potential for that. So we are open to that and explore those ideas with staff.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jeremy.
Mayor, I just appreciate knowing that you are looking at our parks once a month and you're keeping a record and you're scoring them, which tells you how successful we are. And it makes us know that you're really on top of it, that you are seeing every single one of our parks at least once a month.
Correct. And along that, Jeremy and his team have really spent a lot of time and effort putting into this process, and it's coming together very, very nicely and truly helps us paint the picture. So I want to commend Jeremy for his efforts with that.
Absolutely.
Joe?
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to say, with my background, I really appreciate, it's easy to paint a picture, and that you've taken the time to go on and, instead of subjectively, you've actually quantified this, in my view. So I appreciate those efforts. It's easy to go down and see a score, see what you want to get to, and see where you have to go. So I appreciate that.
And it's great that all levels of the staff are involved in this process, all towards the common goal of improving our system. So.
It's great information for us. Yes, Bill?
You know, I don't know if it's piggyback or bring the whole thing full circle, but I think this makes it much easier to understand how we intend to spend the $250 in the CIP and how that can touch a number of facilities. And I think that becomes an important part of telling the rest of the story. We just sit here and we'll go, yep, 250, and off we go. But to hear that, this is what we were able to do with it, and this is what it was before, and this is what it is after, I think brings that story completely around.
It's so much easier to track for us what we've done and what we're going to do.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't have that before.
Well, and this is our first year that we've actually implemented the tool into everything from our operations plan to our strategic plan evaluations for the employees and everything. What we're working towards is doing exactly what Bill said, was trying to identify what those needs are and quantify them by a dollar amount for each one of these categories, so that way at the end of the year we can always present, these are our issues, this is how much money it's going to cost to take care of each one of these categories. We have it in line with our priority-based budgeting and what quartile that falls into, and then that way it's easier to identify which issues do we want to tackle first.
Yeah, super. Thanks.
Feel better.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Stay here.
Sorry.
Okay, looking at the Recreation and Aquatics and Arts and Culture Division, the division manages summer recreation programs, youth and adult sports, basically our program side of the house, community events. Total budget's $1.3 million. The large driver here, $263,000, 20%, is part-time staff. You know, we talked a lot about full-time staff, and that does equate to 56% of the overall budget, but 20%, $263,000 is part-time staff. Again, this allows us to operate as efficiently as possible by carrying a large portion of part-timers. In addition, $220,000, $229,000 equates or makes up the YMCA subsidy each year. Challenges associated with recreation.
Carolyn, I'm sorry, did you have a question?
Well, what does that translate to dollars?
229,000.
229,000.
Well, no, he just told us
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed
229,000.
that. I apologize.
We budget annually approximately $230,000 for the YMCA subsidy. This year it came in at $215,000, so it does fluctuate.
And it comes out of his budget.
What would make it fluctuate that significantly?
It's a calculation that is based on operational expenses and their revenue and the delta between. So we cover the first $150,000 operational expense for the YMCA pool. Anything after $150,000 is split 50-50 between the city and the YMCA.
Joe?
Could you just high-level overview, just refresher, because it's been a while, for me at least, on what's the city get for that?
Correct.
And how long it is.
Yeah, the length, I want to say it's about a 50-year contract, but I have to confirm that for you. It is 50, correct. And what we receive is our residents are allowed to swim there without passes for $3 per day during open swim. We also are able to utilize the facility for community events, and it's treated as an asset for our community. It's also the swim program there is something to be proud of, and it serves as a graduation step for the recreation swimmers that are in our rec program. Rec program swim, when they want to graduate to the next level, they go to the YMCA. And so that's basically the relationship. It also involves the school district as well, the Agua Fria School District.
Joe?
Open, you say open swim days, what percentage is open? I mean,
Is it every
is it
day?
10, 20, is it every day, a certain hour, or?
That's a great question. I don't have that information now, but we're certainly looking into, what I've started doing is researching those agreements and dusting them off, and we're working with legal to make sure we understand the interpretation, to make sure that we maximize that use and that relationship.
Yeah, I just think it would be helpful to know what that is, that definition, and then maybe get that out to the community so they know what those open swim days are.
We're certainly working on that.
Okay, thank you.
Exact same thing. Challenges for the Recreation Division, of course, limited facilities. We've heard that quite a few times. Our programs are limited due to the limited facilities. And then, of course, staffing resources. We're operating with heavy part-time and 3 full-timers, offering 498 programs.
That's amazing.
That's an incredible offering.
Sherry, excuse me.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I know this is the first year you're really offering like a full board for summer, and I know you probably don't have any statistics yet because it just came out, but as this proceeds, I'd like to know how that turned out.
Fantastic. We actually did our first last year summer rec program, and this year we're expanding to 2 sites. And our new IGA with Avondale School District is allowing us to expand those.
You're having 2 summer rec programs?
We're having 2
Oh, I
summer
didn't
rec
know that.
sites this summer.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're excited about it.
And it piggybacks with what Joe was saying about having places for families here. I mean, that's more
Yeah,
activities for
that
kids,
is
so I
wonderful.
appreciate that in the West Valley.
That's exactly true.
You notice our participation is growing substantially, largely due to, events, farmers market, Lakeside Music Festival. We're seeing a strong increase in our active adults, whether it's trips or bunco or bingo, very active adult community, and of course enrichment programs. Not to come out of left field here, but big props to receiving the USA Today Reader's Choice Best Ballpark in the Cactus League. Big props to all the staff there and of course the city for that. The job of the operations and maintenance staff is to manage the 103-acre facility. Primary functions are ball field maintenance according to Major League Baseball standards. The grass needs to lean the right way, right?
Are you serious?
Yes.
He's serious.
It's
Very
a science. It truly is a science. Ballpark also produces the large signature events for the city, 4th of July, Home Plate for the Holidays, Fall Festival. Business operations oversees ticket sales and sponsorship sales. And then, of course, our non-spring training usage. Again, last year, 59 events, 641 event days.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, Joe?
Nathan, since you mentioned the ballpark activities, is there, I know every single year we talk about this, and there's always a challenge to maintaining the field and then utilizing it in the off-season, if you will. But as I have the opportunity to travel now, different venues within communities are able to offer, little, and we've talked about little concerts and stuff. Now, we may not get AC/DC here, but
Shoot for the moon.
but is there, can we, I know you guys are always looking at something, so I don't want to say we need to do, but to bring in, that 10,000 person draw that, without disrupting the flow of the ballpark. And honestly, I look at Chase Field, for example, and, in the wintertime, it's plywood and dirt, and they're running monster trucks in there and everything else. And I realize we're not big enough to do that, but there's got to be a balance in there. So can you give me a little of the rationale?
Yeah, thank you. We're certainly capable of accommodating those types of events and have looked into accommodating those types of events. We're in a strong competitive market, competing with other 10-like facilities, as well as the open space off the 101. It's the farm, the farmer there.
Oh, Fear Farm?
Yep. So we're in a very competitive market, but we do seek out those opportunities. And of course, Bruce will be looking into that, and he's already has a few things in mind that he's working on. No pressure, but yeah.
But the last guy who had the job.
So
no one's watching, so it's okay.
We also look to leverage our partner Ticketmaster, who is owned by one of the largest concert promoters. So it's a matter of finding that right fit, making sure it makes strong fiscal sense. If we're in the promoting business, we could have a concert here, next week, and it's just, are we willing to take that risk and pay for the talent as opposed to waiting to work with the promoter? That's kind of where we're in. We would much rather work with the promoter, let them carry the risk. We cover our expenses. If the event does well, we do well together. Would be the ideal arrangement, as opposed to us, investing for talent and.
But isn't there a sound system always kind of a problem at the stadium for events like that, or we?
We have had
Yes,
some
we have
concerned
had. That's why
residents
I
over
say,
sound,
yeah.
but I think with enough notice, and if we do it on a weekend, I think we should be okay. So it is something that we pursue, and it's on the table constantly.
Well, and it's one of those things that, I realize the promoter and whatnot, but when I have the opportunity to talk to people about the ballpark, and, we get the USA Today, rating, which is fine, and, it's something to be very proud of, but the one thing that I'm able to communicate to them is our ability to use that ballpark all year long, where other facilities only have 2 weeks available to their city. So that's a big deal, and something that what I hear from residents is we need to leverage that. Sure. And I know you guys have been hearing it from the minute that we got the keys.
Sure.
But I think it's just such a great opportunity that I don't know if you need council direction to push some things forward. Whatever we can do to try to get that done. I'd like to see us come together and try to support.
Thank you.
Utilizing it.
We'll certainly keep those options open, and I think the 550 Little League kids that are playing out there now are great feel good about having that opportunity to be in there after spring. So.
Mayor, I have a
Yes,
question.
Wally?
I'd like to, Nathan, because of the cost to get someone big to come, I know, do we have the capability of actually contracting with someone if they're going to charge us, say, $25,000 or $35,000 or more to appear? Can you just on your own do that? I mean, it's not even in your budget, so how does that work?
Well, the way it would work, if we had a quality opportunity, then we would visit with Brian and Bob and figure out how we can get this done. If it made strong fiscal sense and it was on stable ground and the risk wasn't too large, then I feel like we could explore that.
Yeah, I think Bill was reading my mind, but that's okay. When I was at with Mayor, I guess, Sherry, when we were there at the festival, and you saw the kids dancing in the front and the 5,000 some people there and the different bands in there, to me, it seems like people want that kind of stuff, only because it was packed. Everybody was having a good time, enjoying the different genre and the different music that was going on out there. It was really nice.
But it was free.
I know it's free, but at the same
Yeah, it was
token,
free.
that
Yeah,
was free.
it was
But the
free.
same token, I was at Glendale not that long ago at their state, not the Cardinal Stadium, And what they did in that grassy area, similar to what we have, is they fenced it off, and it was a barbecue fest. They must have had 10 to 12, maybe more than that, different barbecue vendors that were in there. That's what promoted it, and then they had a stage
Right.
in which they had 70s or 80s, the old bands that are now making their second go-around to, but it was pretty crowded. It was cheap, $25-$30 to get in for listening to music and enjoying food. It was, for an outing, it's not that expensive. So, I think there is some demand out there after I see, and I realize it was free, but I think you'll get people out there if you got quality, somebody quality to come sing. Again, I don't want to equate it to Bike Week, but there was thousands of them out there, with good music playing, thousands of people there, so.
Barbecue pits.
They had everything. Some things I can't talk about.
Let's see how our arts and cultural event goes at the community park and see if our residents turn out for this event that's coming up.
But it's just a thought.
It'll give us an idea.
We'll certainly keep
Yeah.
that at the forefront, and we'll keep working it. We will keep working it. Ballpark operations, $4.1 million, 375,000 in part-time staff, 745,000 in utility costs, which we're hoping will be reduced by at least 200,000
That would be
in the
nice.
upcoming year. So, excited for that. Challenges?
Joe, I'm sorry, Joe has another
Just a quick question. On the volunteer at the ballpark, the number of hours they put in, do you have any dollar savings tied to that?
It's a lot.
I know,
It's over, it's 9,200 hours, $200,000 in savings
Okay.
for our ballpark volunteers, over 200 volunteers. Challenges continue to be aging riding equipment. This is our mowers and fleet, and we have been able to receive some supplementals the past couple of years that have helped, but there is still some outstanding equipment on the replacement list. O&M repair, we're in our 6th year now, and so the buildings are getting more expensive to operate and to maintain. That's always a challenge. How do we increase our tourism attendance? 2013, 58% of those visiting during spring training were from outside the area, staying an average of 5.9 nights. So that's a challenge. What do we do to increase that tourism and get more people here? And then, of course, competition for events. That's a sample there of Color Me Rad. The non-spring training study that was independent study said that we're capturing about 22% of the non-spring training business that's available within the 10 facilities. So we're attracting 22% of that business right now. Fiscal year supplementals, we were fortunate to receive supplementals this past year. I'll just highlight a few of them. Park amenities, that's trash can and bench replacement in our park system. Concrete repair, we have a sample of that, of a new court that was resurfaced. Can we have Elmo, please? There we go. There's a sample of the sports court at Estrella South that was resurfaced and restriped. We also received money to replace some of our riding equipment that was outdated in both parks and the ballpark. But the one I'm most excited about is the right-of-way plant and tree replacement. And we have some samples here of before and an after to show you our dollars at work here. So this is Yuma, west of Estrella. That's the before picture.
Good.
And
Oh,
here's
nice.
the after. So you can see the plants are planted, and hopefully they will start to bloom and blossom and provide us better coverage in that area. We have another after picture. This is on Estrella Parkway between MC 85 approaching Yuma. So you can see the basically your smaller plants are the newer ones in that area. So we're pleased that we're improving our curve appeal for Goodyear.
Mayor.
Bill?
Nathan, I assume because Guyleen's is on the art side of it, and you guys take care of the medians, so the monument signs that were supposed to go up this year, wasn't there a supplemental on that for the new Goodyear? I thought we were going to put 4 up this year, I don't know, maybe.
No,
I don't think we,
no,
Oh, no, all right.
no. We talked one time, a long
We
time
talked
ago about it, but we never
but
did
we
it.
never put it into
We
action.
decided not to.
Okay.
Just for clarification, there was an allocation in the capital improvement plan for one monument sign at the entry, those big ones that are at the entry points.
Yeah, the concrete ones.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that is in the capital improvement plan. I think it's $40,000 this year, and engineering is the project management on that. And that has not started to move forward yet because they're working with community development on the analysis that they did as far as placement and where that would go. But
So I
that is
haven't
one
completely
sign.
lost my mind.
You're right, yes.
Partially.
Just a
That's
portion.
it, meeting's over.
With regards to efficiencies this past year, Jeremy demonstrated for you the parks and right-of-way maintenance standards and those processes, and so we're excited about that impact, and it clarifies expectations, and all the teams understand what their expectations are when they're performing maintenance at the parks. IGA, we renewed the contract with the Avondale School District. This allows us priority and free use of their school facilities. We're anticipating that this will save us approximately $10,000 to $15,000 per year. Traffic management, and this is a result of Bruce and the ballpark team working with police and traffic engineering. They came up with a new traffic plan and implemented that plan, and that resulted in $20,000 in savings, primarily from receiving assistance from police with changeover in traffic aid equipment from ingress to egress. So we're excited about that. And safety initiatives that have been deployed throughout the city but have had a tremendous impact in parks and recreation, reducing the number of incidents and the number of time off in our department. Something we're very proud of is our internship program. This past year, we had 4 interns. They worked over 222 hours, and this equates to $45,000 in value from our interns, and it was part of their program to complete this. And they worked for free as part of they actually paid tuition to their school, and as part of that program, they had to do an internship, and we were glad to take them. And we see this program expanding, so it's working out very, very well for us.
Cheryl Lynn?
Where are they coming from?
All across the country. We had recreation from ASU, and the ones at the ballpark came from colleges across the country that were specifically majoring in sports management.
One came from Cleveland.
One did come
I
from
met him.
Cleveland, yeah.
Very nice young man.
And of course, volunteer utilization. Councilmember Pizzillo was asking about this earlier. Over 9,200 hours by our volunteers, $200,000 in savings for the ballpark. So just an example of some of our efficiencies. I want to highlight 3 quick performance measures,
Joe?
if I may.
Excuse me.
Just a quick comment, Nathan. I've had several people from out of town come. They've been impressed, thought our city was brand new, mainly because of the look and the feel of the maintenance and the right-of-way. You know, that's why, I feel, as others do, how important it is to get that look and feel of the city coming in, because they truly were impressed. I mean, they didn't see any graffiti, the mediums were well taken care of, they didn't see the weeds, none of that. So, again, it says a lot for our city when it looks like that, especially when new businesses are coming in and locating. They see the pristine and the look and the feel of our city. So I appreciate those efforts to keep up on that, because I think it sells the city, and also wants people to, to say, says a lot about how you care about your community as well. So I thank you for that.
Correct. We view that as our front porch, as Goodyear's front porch,
Yeah,
and it's their first impression of the city, someone visiting the city. So, falling short on the rotation cycles, 2.2, we really want to try and get that back up to 3 so we can serve the city better in that regard.
Okay.
Just quick performance measures I'd like to highlight. The first one deals with how we're doing program related. So this is percent of ratings for our recreation programs as excellent or above average, and our performance measure is 90%. We're currently trending at 93%. You can see our actual was 69% in 2013. Of course, we've added new supervisor David Side, who's implemented some new initiatives and delivery models, more customer focus, easier registration processes, using the volunteer coaches there as ambassadors to go out and communicate, so they're better equipped to communicate on our behalf. And the results are, the proof is in the pudding, going from 69% to now trending to 93% of those participating in our programs are rating us above average or excellent. Getting back to performance of right-of-ways, again, our goal is 3 maintenance cycles. You can see actual 2013. We did get around 3 times, but we weren't able to complete the full cycle of maintenance that was needed. We got there because we were hot-shotting or hot-spotting weeds or dealing with an irrigation issue. We're trending right now 1.27. We think we'll finish about 2.2 cycles through the right-of-way this year. And the goal is 3. And the last one here is to maintain our parks to a 90% standard of care. Right now, we are averaging approximately 80% we're trending at. Third quarter, we were at 78%. Again, our goal is to get them to 90%. Making some of the improvements in the upcoming years will help bring this average up. Our priorities for the upcoming year, of course, we just finished, or we're in the process of finishing a little plan called the Parks, Recreation Trails and Open Space Master Plan. So we'll look to implement portions of that plan. We're always looking at park improvements, like we discussed earlier, and really addressing the needs. We're excited about opportunities to improve our right-of-way and medians, and also implement our arts and culture strategic plan. And of course, we look at exploring ways to increase tourism through our events and through spring training. Those are our priorities for the upcoming year. So with that, we'll answer any questions.
First of all, let me say thank you, Jeremy, for coming when you don't feel well. We appreciate it. And Nathan, good presentation. Questions from council? Sherry?
I just want to say thank you, because I think when we talk about the departments, the Parks and Rec, that's kind of, in a way, the face of the city, and that's what people look at and why people come here. So I appreciate everything you've done, and we look forward to the parks and everything.
Well, it's right at the top of our citizens list, parks and recreation, and they want more, so you know how important it is. So you've kind of moved up that food chain, you're on top. So everybody's looking at you and how that's going to be performed, so good on you. Any other comments? Yes.
Oh, yeah, I'm
But
sorry.
you're allowed to, city manager.
Well, no, I was going to hit the next slide. Oh, yeah, transition. Yes, I was just going to try and jump into the wrap-up, Mayor. If I'm getting ahead of you, I apologize.
Thanks, Nathan, Jeremy, everybody.
You got 4 minutes.
I know.
Now I'll call on the city manager to give it a wrap-up.
Thank you, and I will try and get through this in 4 minutes. First of all, very respectful of council's time the last couple of nights. You know, one of the reasons we did this is we felt it important to get the directors here and some of their supporting team so you could ask the questions, and I really appreciate the dialogue, the questions that go back and forth. Oh, I get to drive this, huh? And the other is so you know how we address the supplementals. What you approved this year is what's getting done. Efficiencies, council's talked about that, and you saw some of that, as well as the performance measures and priorities for next year. So this will kind of help set the stage, and as I get into my wrap-up, a couple of things that I want to go through. We've already talked about volunteer utilization. Of that 250,000, Nathan already pointed out about 200,000 of that is actually with his area, so very impressive. These are citywide, by the way. The bond refinancing, 1.4 million in savings, but because we went from a AA minus to AA, so those are efficiencies that actually save on the bottom line. The capital project investment, we've already talked about. The grants, we did get $300,000 for the Water Smart grant for the Vados project, and $52,000 Gila River Indian community for the fire department's electronic patient care reporting, and $16,000 from the Tohono O'odham tribe for the segways. Those are just a couple of our key grants that I wanted to highlight that have had big impacts. The next one is, this is the framework, and I'm not going to go through each of these. You have them in front of you. Just a couple of things I want to point out. As we approach this budget, and it is fully funded, fully balanced, as we're going to propose it to you. But we had one of cautious optimism. We held the line on sales tax. We felt that was important. The other is we tied our strategic action plan to the budget. We also used priority-based budgeting, as you're aware of. And I think one of the very important ones on the far right under results, the citizen satisfaction survey, management has had a chance to look at that. You'll be receiving a copy tonight, and you'll have a chance to look at that. That gets presented to you on May the 5th. But what you'll find is what we're proposing in the budget is very tightly aligned with what the citizen satisfaction survey yielded, which is really a reflection of what council has talked about as well. So very pleased that it seems to be very much in sync. Parks, recreation, those types of things. This one is population growth. We will be requesting positions, and I'll tell you right now, it is, if you look back on this to fiscal 09-10, we had 527 positions that were authorized. But since fiscal year 9, our population has increased, thank you, 20%. I told you I can't do both at the same time. Our population's increased 20%, yet our FTEs have decreased by 8%. So it is this is a year where we will be asking for a total of 16 positions, and that takes us back to fiscal year 09-10. So we'll be right back up at those levels because we've not done any increases in the past 4 years, as you're aware. The priorities that you have in front of you, we will be talking this coming Monday on the personnel items, but as we're asking for new FTEs, we are looking at data-driven. Is it a new program? Is it, do we have workload indicators? We will be looking at interns and temporary as well. And the other is, and I'll just kind of jump down to the replacement funds, because the rest of these we've already talked about are pretty common sense, I guess. Replacement funds is going to be something that we look at to where it's tied to our asset management initiative. You heard it from Parks. They're doing that now, looking at where their needs are. We're looking at that throughout the city, so we can really take data-driven decisions, and plus also seeding what we call a replacement fund, and we'll be having that in front of you as well. Technology, we definitely agree with that. We have a real opportunity to use technology, and we will be asking for positions related to technology, as you'll see when you get the information. And finally, quality of life. Some of that's already been talked about, the park replacement, pool repairs. But we're also talking about programming, arts, culture, recreation, public safety, media, and enhancement. So these are the priorities that we felt were very important to stay in tune or stay in front of us as we approach the budget this year. So the last slide I have tonight, Mayor and Council, is right now we're at the, or next Monday, April 21st, is when we get in front of you next. And you will be getting, again, information from us, so you'll have an opportunity to study this, look at it, ask management questions as you have questions of some of our proposed items. Again, it's Council's, Mayor and Council's most important decision that you make any given year on the policy of setting the budget. So we're trying to take the time and give you the information you need to really evaluate it, and then ask us the questions as we complete this budget. because it is over just the next couple of weeks that we get through the revenues, through the expenditures, through the CIP, and get those pretty much finalized, because on May 5th, the draft budget will be in front of you. And then it finishes up from there, as you'll see on the rest of the dates. So with that, I do appreciate Kim, being up here and setting this up for us. Very well organized, the directors and their teams that came up and talked to council, and very much appreciate the mayor and council for the questions you asked and observations that you have. It helps us out. With that, I'm complete.
Council comments?
Just a question.
Bill, just
Yeah,
one.
I know one of the things before we started this, Kim had asked for some feedback on process and how did it all go, and I know the last couple of days have been very long. And I had a brief conversation with the city manager about this before the meeting started. I know we did something very similar to this last year, but I just do not remember it taking this long or reviewing some standard information in here. So I guess I would ask the council, despite the length, was this repeat of information helpful? Did we want it in a different format? Personally, I found some of the material just redundant from year to year to year, and I didn't know if anybody else felt that way or not.
Well, I'll just interject to start with. First of all, I want to thank staff.
Absolutely.
Because as I read through this, there was a lot of things that council's been asking about all year. There are people on our council that have not been around very long. They do not know what the departments do. They do not know all the processes. You and Joe, you worked with the city. You come second nature to it. The rest of us, it doesn't. And so when I see, and I understand where you're from, because this is redundant and old, and you know it all. We don't. And so each year we learn something new, and if you're not working in the departments every day, you don't retain that information. And so I think that this is a great review book. I think it's going to make less calls to the city manager. You just go to that department and you look at that information that was given to us. So for us, it's kind of a Bible of the city of what happens in the offices and what each responsibility is. So granted, I agree, it's been a grueling 2 days, but it had, I think, more worth to it than anything. So, yeah, maybe some of the presentation could be tuned up a little bit, but when you got to remember, when we ask these departments to do these presentations, it's like, okay, if I don't say this, then the council's going to say I didn't say this, and then if I don't, so I mean, they are balancing all of this, and it's very difficult. I mean, in your mind, you know how concise you would be the way you do your work and contracting, so you know that. But in this case, they're appealing to 7 people around the table, so I really appreciate all the time and effort, and they all stayed up with us. They were all in here getting sleepy with the rest of us.
It feels as though you're trying to put words into my mouth. I am absolutely not saying
I'm answering what you said, Bill, and when you make those comments, I, as a mayor, have the right to say something back, and it's not critical of what you're saying. I'm giving you my observation, you gave me your observation, and I respect that.
I greatly appreciate staff's work in this, and I do not want to minimize that whatsoever. I know how much time that this takes to put together. So it felt like you were painting it into it. I didn't appreciate it, and that was not.
That was
and I realize it's late, but I'm just saying, I want to make sure that the staff knows how much I appreciate this level, and if we didn't have to put them through it, I'd like to avoid it. But if we need it, then this is what we're here for.
Then I apologize if you translated that into saying you don't appreciate something. That wasn't at all. What I was trying to point out is that we all come from different levels, and you need to go to the level of the majority and what their needs are, and then the other people have to come along with that. Sherry?
Well, I want to say thank you to staff as well, and also thank you, Brian, for having your staff last week. There were several early mornings because of me, and I do appreciate that with the late nights. And I found this very helpful for me personally, because although I've sat through the budget cycles, we've had so many changes in our departments and, directors, and we've consolidated. It's really good to see, so that if more money is needed, I think it's really good to see, well, this position went here. So I found it very helpful. And, I don't mind the 2 nights. I'm a little tired, just not happy, but I'm sure we all are. But I think it was helpful so that when people do ask for money or there are questions from the citizens, where are we spending our money? I think I have personally a better understanding that I can explain it better. So I appreciate it.
Molly?
Well, I appreciate it too, because I deal with a lot of staff, and for those that really know me well, I never ask you what you do, because your title is not important to me, but what you share with me is important. So that's why I kept asking, tell me who these people are. Who is your security administrator? And who is this and that? So that gives me a way to put employee names with positions, and then when the departments come before us, then I can remember, oh yeah, I know that group, and I know how they do. But this has been very informative to me, only because it puts everything in perspective. With so many new reorganizations in most of the departments, it's hard to figure out where everybody fits. And the way that it was laid out in our books was very helpful. And I know we didn't do it last year, and to be honest, I don't think I felt that I was equipped as well as I am tonight, even though it is a long 2 days. But I really have enjoyed hearing these and talking to them, and because, as you know, I don't go to all these departments and talk to all these people. Not anymore, because and I don't know what all. So I don't know what all they do, and when they come like this, then we can ask them.
I have to go to say something here?
No, but I'm just saying, I don't know what all they do, and I don't go ask them. So this has really been wonderful. It's just great, and I'm going to go fill in all the blanks I put in there. So Sherilyn wanted to talk to
Sherilyn.
Mayor.
Well, I just wanted to say, of course, I'm obviously the new kid on the block, and I really, really appreciate the information. And I think it did more than one thing for me. It's information for me, which will be helpful as we go through the budget, because I'll have a better picture of what needs are. But the rest of it is, I can talk more intelligently to our citizenry when they ask me questions, because I have a better picture of what department is doing what and where people need to be sent. So, I mean, it's probably a no-brainer to expect that I would feel that it was so helpful, because, any information is pretty much new information to this detail. So, as others have, I really appreciate, because I was thinking as I was listening to this, I wonder how much, when you talk about quantifying the dollars, what kind of staff time did it take to put this together, to quantify exactly what it costs? But from my perspective, it was another piece in the budgeting process that I really needed. So you asked, and that would be my answer.
Thank you, everyone. Quite frankly, I'm in the middle. This book is terrific, and I think it's a great tool to be able to compare every year. And I did read it all. But I didn't need to have, half of it probably didn't need to be restated within all the discussions. What's awesome is seeing the bullets, and then it's kind of the background information to add to it. So to me, it could have been cut in half, almost, just because I read it. Now it's like, just fill me in on some of the little bit of background to some of those bullets. The other thing is that if you cut that in half, I feel like some of the departments really weren't highlighted. We didn't talk about city managers, we didn't talk about finance, there's some of the departments we didn't go over, so maybe some of that would have been, quick little highlights on that if it had been cut in half. But this is definitely a viable book. Now, going forward, looking at this, what I would like to see, and I did mention this to Kim, was that, looking at the budget for every department, and then did they, I know we still have another quarter to go, but did they have excess revenues within their budget for this past year, and then go forward, what amount are they looking for in the new budget, showing that comparison. Those are the things I'll be looking at. And I know that when the expenditures come out, hopefully we'll be able to see it in that fashion. So that's why I say I'm kind of in the middle, quite frankly.
Joe?
Can you put that last slide back up again, Brian?
Without Kim's help, I hope so,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Or Lynette's, I should say.
April 21st is our next one, with the revenues, right?
Right, and Vice Mayor, we're also going to be covering the human elements, the insurance, as well as proposed wage increases.
Okay. On the here's why I'm asking. I'm going to be out of town, I think the 30th, the 1st. Is May 5th a Monday?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be coming back on the 5th.
And I'm
Hopefully I'll
out
get
the
here.
5th.
But my point is the expenditures and the supplementals, that's the 28th. We're going to get that, a week before? Oh, okay, that's even better, okay. And then on the draft budget, since I'll be on a plane probably the 30th, when will we get that? Will we have that a week or so before?
Draft budget, Kim.
For May 5th, will we have something?
Yes, do you want, yes, we can have materials to you in advance.
Good, because I'm going to be on
Yes.
a plane, and I got to kill 4 or 5 hours anyway, so it'd be a great kind of going through that. On the plane. Yeah, whoever's sitting next to me probably won't, but that's all right. As far as this discussion, whatever the majority wants, but like the mayor says, I don't need this detail, then there's an obvious reason for it. What I wanted to get out of it was, first of all, are we using the money, are we creating our internal dollars through efficiencies and how we're doing it, especially before we go in and ask for more? How do we spend the money that we got as far as supplementals? Where are we there? And what are the priorities going forward? Those are the three I focused on there, because most of the others I already knew about. But again, that you would expect out of me. I'll support whatever the majorities know, because the other stuff really wasn't, I know we've moved a lot of people around, but you're still doing similar functions other than streamlining it. So I kind of knew that, and I kind of keep in tune with our one-on-ones, and I ask these questions anyway. So a lot of this was not new, but the bullet points that you had for all of the things that mentioned how you were spending the money, the efficiencies, I was very interested in, and then also the priorities, because that kind of gets my mind going where you're going when you bring the budget to line that. And then when you give us the piece as far as the survey, that'll all tie together. So again, I kind of think, I'm a simple guy when it comes to that kind of stuff, so I don't need that kind of detail. But again, I'm looking forward to that information I can delve into. So.
Joanne?
One last thing I didn't mention to say, and this is probably in the 7 years, and I know that it's come from this council that we've been discussing for the last couple years, performance measures.
Yeah.
We have not seen them to this kind of depth and detail, and that's exciting. I really like that. So I applaud you for that. I'm happy with that.
Thank you for mentioning that, Joanne. Any other comments? Okay, then, as the city manager said, the 21st at 5 o'clock will be a work session. On the 28th, we'll have a regular meeting with a work session. So again, thank you, staff, very much. Thank you, city manager.
Thanks.
Meeting adjourned.